ever before, but literally kneeling on the ground before these South Sudanese leaders and kissing their feet, expressing his deep sentiments in the face of this, as he himself said, very unique spiritual meeting and gathering of civil leaders and this retreat for peace. Once
Hello, welcome. Yesterday in Rome, Pope Francis was laid to rest, with world leaders like US President Donald Trump in attendance. Now, 138 cardinals are preparing to elect a new leader for 1.4 billion Catholics worldwide. Could this be the moment the world sees its first African pope in modern times? Meanwhile, in South Sudan, a top Vatican envoy has called on warring factions to embrace peace in honor of the late Pope. In Africa's Great Lakes region, Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo have agreed to a US-brokered peace deal that could see M23 rebels disarmed, opening access to Congo's rich mineral wealth for American interests. It is 5:30 p.m. in Accra, Ghana, 6:30 p.m. in Lagos, Nigeria, 1:30 p.m. in New York City. Wherever you are joining us from, welcome to another episode of 90 Minutes Africa. My name is Rudolph Okonkwo. My co-host Chika Oduah is on assignment. On our show today, we have a special guest, Chika Oduah, an award-winning journalist whose work has appeared on Al Jazeera, the New York Times, BBC, the New Yorker, Voice of America, and many others. But Chika is more than a journalist. She's a dancer, a freethinker, and a cultural explorer, unafraid to challenge traditions that confine and define women. Take a look. In today's conversation titled Re-examining Culture, Shunning Marriage, and Embracing the Bohemian Life, Chika shares her personal journey, rejecting societal expectations for a life of artistic freedom, spiritual authenticity, and fearless self-expression. As African societies rethink womanhood, success, and fulfillment, Chika's voice cuts through with clarity and courage. Whether you agree or not, she will make you think. Please join me in welcoming to the show, Chika Oduah.
Hello.
Chika, welcome.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here. I'm very excited.
So how long have I known you? It's been a long time, and you're just coming on this show for the first time.
Since I was on a pacifier.
So welcome, man. We are happy to have you, and we typically start the show by talking about issues in the news. And the first one is what is in all the newspapers around the world today, which is the death and burial of Pope Francis. Any thoughts on that?
He was the Pope, right? He represents an institution centuries old, an institution that is very controversial, an institution that has done good things for humanity and has done some things that have not been very good for humanity. And I think we need to understand that mixed record. For example, it was the Catholic Church that sanctioned the transatlantic slave trade, well, just slavery in general in West Africa. They saw it as a mission to evangelize people in the darkness, in the dark continent. The church has tried to reckon with its past, but some of these issues it has not even addressed. So when I think about the Catholic Church and the passing of the Pope, the mixed record of the church comes to mind. Of course, he has his own background. People are calling him the Pope of the poor. He represented a different voice. But in my mind, he still represents a very old institution that has a lot to answer for.
Now, I'm thinking along that line as an African, you see a lot of Africans mourning. They have special relationship with the church. Do you think there's something they are missing in terms of what you just pointed out about the records of the church in Africa?
Absolutely. There is something that happens with the faithful, whatever part of the world, whether you're from Asia, North America, or Africa, but Africans in particular, number one, don't quite know the history of the Catholic Church and what it's done in Africa. That's the first thing. Once you start to know the history, I think then you can actually look at it carefully. But first of all, many don't even really know the history of the Catholic Church and its influence on Christianity. You know, for example, the typical Christian does not know the making of the Bible, how it was put together. They don't know that. Oftentimes, I think that there is a willing ignorance because you want to maintain this air of mystery, of sacredness around the church and Christianity. So oftentimes they don't want to know. The ones who have an idea often just say, well, it was God's work, you know, that they brought salvation to our ancestors. So I think that a lot of Catholic faithful on the African continent do not want to have that conversation. They'd like to say this is a new era. The sins of the past, you know, are forgotten. But has the church acknowledged its own sins? It hasn't. But the faithful are doing it. I think that's something, you know, to look into. And also when I look at the images of the funeral and I see the rituals around it, very ancient rituals that involve, for example, the frankincense, the attire. There's a lot of solemnity around it. It's a very solemn atmosphere. And it just reminds me of the fact that every culture has their own such practices. But for some reason, the Catholic Church's practices have been put on a pedestal. But other African countries have their own such rituals. And sometimes when you look at funerals of herbalists and other spiritual faith, it's just like what we saw in the Catholic Church, yet it's framed as demonism, you know.
I,
I
I
just think
got,
it's interesting.
sorry, I wanted to say this. I got a lot of pushback on Dr. Damages this week because I made a reference to Okendibe, who is serious Catholic member, and he showed when the Pope died, he showed a picture he took with the Pope at the Vatican. And I was thinking, do we have a picture of someone like Wole Soyinka with the Pope? Or a picture of someone like Chinua Achebe with the Pope? I don't think so. And I'm thinking as an African, as a post-colonial African writer, do we have that responsibility to disassociate ourselves from institutions like that hurt Africa in the past, or still are not doing a lot of so much good to our people or damage our people that we are still suffering from? What do you think about it?
I wouldn't say that writers have this responsibility because writers can choose what issues they want to speak on and what, you know, I think everyone has that choice. But I do feel that at least raising the questions should be something that writers, thinkers, public intellectuals should do that. Absolutely.
You talked about the bad things that the Catholic Church did. If you be the Pope, will you take a picture with the Pope and will you be proud of?
No, I
You
wouldn't
won't.
take.
You won't even take a picture with the Pope.
I don't know what the point is. What is it for people to see I'm with the Pope? I really don't know the Pope. Even the pastor, like growing up in the church, I never took a picture with him. I'm not sure what this represents. What is the point? You know, do you take a picture with your doctor when you go to the doctor?
No, no.
What?
I had a surgery one time. After that, I took a picture with him because I survived. I didn't know I would survive. I said, okay, I'll keep this.
I'm just, yeah. Okay, so two things. When we talk about the church's record, it's not even just the past. I mentioned the transatlantic slave trade. The church deeply rooted in Portuguese, Spanish, and Italian culture. The Italians were not really involved in the trade of Africans. It was Spain and Portugal, and again, it was the Catholic Church that sanctioned it. But even in recent times, this thing of sexual harassment of young boys who have a role in the church, it's never been addressed properly, including the late Pope didn't, really address it. They just shuffle around these men who have been accused of such. They just shuffle them around from parish to parish to keep this culture of silence. I mean, there's just so much. So I'm always wondering, what exactly are we hailing this church for? I really question it. It's one of the biggest institutions, the richest institutions in the world. There's just so much silence around what they do. And a lot of the rituals remind me of rituals that you see in any indigenous spirituality. For example, there are some positions in the Catholic Church that are only reserved for men. Women can't get there. There's just like so many African traditional stuff where women cannot go to that place. Oh, women are not. So it's just, there's so many linkages. We call them cults. And even the Catholic Church has some brotherhoods, some fraternities that are very closed, and again, we have that in Africa too. So many cults that is secret knowledge, what we call the occult. Occult is secret knowledge. The Catholic Church has such too. The Catholic Church, one thing that they do well is they galvanize people to give for charity. That's amazing. And I think that's one thing that it does quite well. The other things, we have these things in our own paradigm as Africans.
Now, you talked about abuses, and there's this story that we tried to work on in the past, and I put it out. I can put it out for you to look. I know you are still associated with journalism in Africa. We know about abuses that happened in the West, and they've been held accountable to that. But what about the ones that happened in Africa? Is it because we know some of the priests that were accused here were shipped to Africa? And nobody today has come out to follow the stories about what they did in Africa. Is that something that you are interested in pursuing?
Absolutely. And I thought about it before. So I tried. I made some steps. That was about 2019 or so. Here in Nigeria, it just came to my mind. I was talking to a friend of mine, and she mentioned that there's one Reverend Father in the community who has children. Secret children, and I was just like, what, and she's like, oh yes, the kids look like him, and it's like it's an open secret. The women who come to give him food give him more than just physical food. So who knows if this is a willing relationship with these women. But also I was reading in my history, doing some historical research on these types of whispers, rumors of sexual harassment, whether it's with men, boys, or females. I was also hearing some things in Cameroon that had happened. But the thing about it in Africa is that we don't really have this culture of really holding people in power accountable. I think because of who we are as Africans, there's so much reverence for people in the public space. There's a lot of reverence, and it's like, okay, don't put their shame in the public. There's a way we should handle it. So we have that perspective. So these Catholic, the representatives of the Catholic Church in Africa have not been brought to the books. There's so much fear around speaking up because, again, this is the church. These are God's workers. But I do hope that there will be an undercover investigation. And I would love to be part of that project. And I know another journalist who has mentioned this idea as well, but uncovering some of the wrongs that the Catholic Church has done in Africa when it comes to sexual abuse.
I'm
Because
not even
this,
I'm not even talking about current pastors, like Africans. I'm talking about Europeans when they came.
okay.
There were people from Europe who committed crimes in Europe and they were shipped to Africa. And
Yeah.
most of them are retired now. Some of them are dead. But why are we not getting people speak out in Africa saying this is what happened? I mean, what do you think about that, exploring that?
I think, first of all, journalism in Africa, especially when it comes to the Africans doing it, is not, there's still a narrative that many mainstream journalists are still following. And it's really to make Africa look as, I don't want to use the word bad, but as dysfunctional as possible. Therefore, we look at our own politicians and our own professors, Africans. We don't usually go to the top. The top usually goes to Europe and North America. So we just kind of keep it at these players who I think are low-level players, actually, when it comes to the international geopolitical space. They're low-level players. But the African journalist has not really been taught to examine white people, and their hands in all this corruption. So I think it just kind of goes back to answer to what. So even in the religious space, the same.
Okay. You've been in Africa now for, if I count correctly, more than 12 years.
Okay. I moved to Kenya 2010.
Oh, okay. So you're looking
Nigeria.
at 15, close to 15. So
Yes, that soon will be half my life.
Okay. What has changed?
Since I've been here
Mm-hmm.
on the continent.
Yeah.
Ooh, a lot has changed. I think it depends on the region. Some countries, I believe, have made big moves towards democracy, or allowing their people to actually speak and express themselves. For example, Senegal has changed in that manner from what it was in the previous regimes. But a lot of countries, I think, have really fallen aside when it comes to democratic development. I'm thinking of the likes of South Africa. I'm thinking of Ghana. I'm thinking of Cameroon. Well, did Cameroon even really have a democratic voice? Not really. But there were some kind of beacons of democracy in Africa. And now we really question a lot of these things, because what we can wholeheartedly say is that graft on the continent is just off the charts. It's just getting bigger and bigger. There's no lid on the amounts of money that we're seeing being siphoned out of this continent. And so when you have that atmosphere, it makes the people feel like their voice is not being heard. And of course, it stifles democracy. So what we're seeing is this massive flight out of Africa. And that massive flight, it's Eritrea. Eritrea is still the highest number of Africans crossing to the Mediterranean from East Africa. And then, of course, you see it with Nigerians moving all across the continent. Senegal, a lot of young people are now moving. I think this is the big change. Oftentimes they would move with the plan to come back. They just want to get their bachelor's degree abroad. But now it's like, I'm moving and I'm going to be gone for 20, 30 years. I want to raise my entire family abroad. This is something totally new. There is a general sense of disillusionment. It's in Kenya very much, because of course Kenya was the first place I moved to, and the Kenyans have always had this hope, forward thinking for their country, but now you don't hear that at all. So there's this general sense of where are we going, and feeling lost.
What do you make of Burkina Faso, Niger, and the young soldiers who are taking over in West Africa, and people putting their whole hopes and aspirations on these people? What do you make of that?
Well, when Traore came to the inauguration of the newly elected president of Ghana, the applause that he received was deafening. And Mahama was like, wow, like it was even louder than the applause given to Mahama himself, you know, a few months ago. It was it was as if Michael Jackson had walked into the space, Troy, the military leader. So I think Africans generally still have this reverence for big man politics, strong man politics. It doesn't make sense. I don't think it's progressive at all. But I think this is kind of what many Africans understand: strongman politics, this charismatic rigidity. I think it reminds them of the past. Before we had democracy, the Western style, there was obviously African type of governance, and it was this big man style, you know, who led with this authoritarianism. This is what many people on the continent know. It's not even just in the political space we see this type of personality. We see it in the like in the public sector, education. Professors act like this as well. So when you have leaders who want to ask, so what do you guys think, and want to have this type of diplomatic way, this body language, Africans call it weak. You know, tell us what to do. They want to be told what to do, because this is the historical way of African governance. So when this comes in this century, it looks familiar, and they feel it's going to be the answer to their problems. I don't think it is.
Now, do you think that you have, you know, in the past we had what happened to Patrice Lumumba in Congo, Captain Sankara in Burkina Faso? Are we going to see the same thing happen to Ibrahim Traoré?
In terms of assassination?
Yeah, because every week now they tell us that there was a plan to kill him, and it appears as if Africans are coming together as if they can stop it. What is going to happen? You know, because there's a part that the West is playing in all the African stories that we read about, even in the news today, in terms of Congo and Rwanda. And the West always have a role in what happens in Africa. Do you think an African country can resist? There could be an African country that can resist the West and be able to sustain that resistance?
I mean, Zimbabwe, Mugabe tried to do that. And
what happened?
Yeah, he was dragged. His name was dragged. His name was dragged for such a long time.
Not just his name, the country collapsed.
The country collapsed. They dragged his name through the media. Some people still diehard feel that he did good for the country, that he had the best intentions. When you hear him talk, he sounds like a real sound, intellectual, Pan-African, you know, but in practice, it just doesn't work out. There's such a gap.
The worst economy now in Africa is Zimbabwe, most likely.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. There's a gap because many Zimbabwean leaders do have this Pan-Africanist rhetoric. It's part of the tradition. They have that. But in implementation, there's a gap. And I'm curious to find out why this gap is there. Because in theory, what they're saying is it's very much nationalistic politics. It's people like this. But in practice, it just falls apart. But speaking of Traoré, I don't want to predict anyone's death. So I don't want to do that. But I do feel, obviously, not just the West is watching, but China is watching and Russia is watching to see where they want to rush. And those people are all in it. All of these hands are at play. That's what I was saying. African journalists, we don't often report to the top. We just kind of keep it at our own level of what's happening here. But all of these international hands are in the pot, stirring things.
Mm. Okay, let's before we go back to Nigeria and what you do, let's talk about South Africa. I know it's a good example of what we're talking about. When you look at what happened to Zimbabwe, you can look at what South Africa is going through with Trump. Trump is totally after South Africa for taking Israel to the International Criminal Court and also for opposing Trump, essentially, some of his goals. And then the white people, what they think white people are suffering in South Africa. What do you think? Do you think South Africa can resist, can withstand pressure from Trump and Trump's allies if it comes to that? Because Zimbabwe was doing well at the beginning until they imposed sanctions on Zimbabwe. The same thing could happen in South Africa.
South Africa is so complex. I think it's one of the most complex countries on the continent. When it comes to this white, trying to equalize what happened with apartheid and the distribution of land, I don't think South Africa would cave because you still have the majority saying that these wrongs have to be addressed. The white people are claiming that the government is taking their land, but the South African government is using a different language. They're saying that we're redistributing, we're trying to repurpose. They're saying we're repurposing the land. For example, some of the private properties, they're trying to now make it public spaces and say you need to use this part for a park, for a hospital, stuff like this. So they're reappropriating it, repurposing it. A lot of it is the language and the way it's being framed. On that issue, I don't think that South Africa will back down because I think that they will have global support on their side. People will see that Trump's policy, what he's trying to push on that doesn't make sense and that it's against, he's not on the right side of history. So with that issue. And also with Israel, I mean, South Africa is not the only one who's been openly critical, and they have been critical of Israel for such a long time. But I do think that South Africa will hold its ground in terms of continuing to speak about these issues, the race, politics, Israel. I don't think that because they have other allies besides the US. Yeah. And I think that they lead when it comes to holding Israel to account. In Africa, they're the only ones who are really doing this at that level.
Okay, let's go down to Nigeria. You've been in and out of Nigeria. I don't know when you are living there, when you're not, but you understand the country. You've covered, you were the first journalist that went to Chibok after the kidnapping. And that has been more than 10 years. How do you assess the country?
I wouldn't say I understand Nigeria. I don't think it's anybody that can really understand it. There are so many things here that doesn't make sense. So I would never say I understand Nigeria. But I'm on this lifelong quest to look at it, to examine it.
So when you went to Chibok after the kidnapping, 10 years after, did you think that Nigeria would be where it is today in terms of dealing with Boko Haram and insecurity? Did you envision where we are today, 10 years ago?
With Islamic extremism, yes, I did. Because this is not the beginning of Islamic extremism in Nigeria. It's not at all. And now there's a new guy in town. Lakurawa is the latest jihadist group in Nigeria. It started from the northwest Sokoto axis, coming from Niger. And this is fallout from the whole Niger ECOWAS being kicked out. It's fallout. It's happening. We're seeing it. So now Lakurawa, coming from that Sokoto side, is now making its way across northern Nigeria. And now they're trying to now penetrate Boko Haram zone. None of this is a surprise to me because this is an ideology and it's always hard to squash, to kill ideologies.
Bring Our Girls Back. Where is that campaign? Has it been abandoned? I know you interviewed most of their advocates. What are they doing today? Are they still looking for the girls?
I mean, there's other issues, and I think that's part of being a Nigerian. There are so many issues to tackle. So they still, of course, have their hearts there, but they know it's not the only issue here. You can't monopolize issues. And if you look at where they are, they're tackling other issues. Of course, we can talk about Obieze Kwesili, and now she's looking at what's happening with Senator Natasha. So she's been there. So she's in that space. And then we see Aisha. She's also speaking about the governance, what's happening. She's in so many areas. So they have used that. Some of them used the Big Back Our Girls advocacy to now launch into other ills of Nigeria. All of them, all those leaders were very much of the Boko Haram, Bring Back Our Girls campaign, were very active in the End SARS campaign as well. So they have used their platform that they have now created to talk about other ills in Nigeria. And I think that's amazing.
Now, the Chibok girls, where are they now? I know you were in touch with some of them. You interviewed some of them, I believe. Where are they now?
The ones who are
the ones that were freed, or the ones that
okay. Well, many of them are in the United States. A handful, well, not say many, but they're about up to 11 that I know who are in the U.S. They're getting married. They are having children. They send me pictures of their kids. Two of them I know who I interviewed personally. They have a kid with Americans. So they're very much integrated in American society. And interestingly, I have to say this, the ones in America who got married are marrying white men, white Americans. And this doesn't surprise me. That's a whole nother conversation, but it's white men who they're getting married to. And then there are still many of them in Chibok. I got a message from one of them a few weeks ago who I interviewed, and she said that the government has stopped paying her school fees. Can I help her? So they've largely been abandoned by the government, the ones who were taken back to Chibok. Some of them were in the university in Adamawa, American University of Yola. Some of them, the government just did not continue paying their tuition. So a lot of them just wanted to just get married and just forget about school.
Now, I know you are writing a book about Boko Haram. How far are you with the book, and whatever happened to Mama Boko Haram?
Good question. This book that I'm writing, it has gone through 3 different iterations in terms of what it's about. It was, the whole idea came up when the Chibok girls happened. I was contacted by so many agents, Hollywood agents and literary agents who wanted a book. And I felt, I don't think a book should come out now. It seems too exploitative. So the book was going to initially be about the Chibok girls. And then I said, no, let me make it about Boko Haram, larger than the Chibok girls. But now it's even larger than Boko Haram. The book that I'm writing is looking at the entire landscape of Nigeria, politically and socially. So it's almost like social science. So the book I'm writing is taking an unflinching look at Nigeria, the Nigeria that we are in today. What is going to happen to this country? So these are the questions that I pose with the book that I'm writing. I describe the book as a somber love letter to Nigeria, because there's a lot of my own personal experience. And the tone, it's a tone that's very much longing. There's a lot of longing. There's love in the book, but then there's also this sadness. There's a gloom as I'm walking around. So the book very much, it includes memoir. So there's my experience as just a human being. Then there's reportage, my experience as a journalist. And it's just me going from town to town, community, meeting people, talking, so you can really get the pulse of Nigeria when you read the book. So it takes a bigger look. It's looking at the Japa trend that we're seeing here. It's looking at Nigeria in terms of the Afrobeats, where we are in the pop culture and how our names are just all over the place and what we're doing in pop culture. So it touches on so many different things. It touches on NSARS and what happened to that. It also touches on IPOP, this pro-Biafra movement that we're seeing. So that it's really giving you a wide view of where we are as a nation and what could that look like from my perspective as a Nigerian.
Now, covering Nigeria, you spent a lot of time in the north. There's a new thing happening now. It's not very clear to a lot of people, which is a kind of division right there in the north between the Hausa people and other minorities and the Fulani. Did you notice that when you were covering Nigeria and you were based in the north?
A little bit. It was there underneath. Depends on where you go. Historically, it's been Hausa/Fulani. That's how they've been perceived in Nigeria historically, Hausa-Fulani. So not so much distinction. And even some people in the north, the minorities, Hausa-Fulani. But when you look further, there are some distinctions. For example, with Boko Haram itself, the membership, the makeup of the membership, the composition, there's those who are pure Kanuri, Hausa, Fulani, and they do different things. But when it comes to distinguishing the Hausa Fulani, I've always been fascinated by that personally. But this squashing together, and I think it's a very simplistic narrative, and I push against it. You know, a lot of people from the South, just Hausa Fulani. It's like, no, these people have actual like different languages even. Fulanis, you can find them in more parts of Africa than the Hausa people. The Hausas are indigenous to northern Nigeria. Indigens, they can trace Fulanis, they're wandering people, this kind of thing. And so this distinction, I'm not surprised, because I think it even speaks to where we are in the world today with this nationalism that we're seeing all over the place. People want to represent who they are, their identity. We're seeing it everywhere. So even the Hausas, no, we're House, they're trying to now establish their identity. And they're now speaking about being oppressed, by the Fulanis who came from outside. And this was always a very touchy topic, taboo, because it's been going on for so long, even before the Brits came. But then when the Brits came, it was even solidified even further, because by then the Fulanis had already established themselves as the rulers of northern Nigeria. With all the emirs, you have to be of this lineage, this kind of thing. So I'm not surprised now that we're seeing the Hausas wanting to make this distinction.
How do you think that will end? Because a lot of people who consider themselves Fulanis, they are worried about their place in Nigeria.
I think time will tell. I think that there will be more alliances. There'll be more militancy, to be honest, which is disturbing, but that's where I see it going. There will be more ethnic militias to represent who they are, to represent their communities.
You mentioned IPOB. I believe you interviewed Nnamdi Kanu while you were. Did you?
Yeah, I was the first one to interview him when he was released from prison in Abuja, 2017.
Okay. So where IPOB is today, or the Biafran movement, did you envisage that is where things will be?
It's mixed. I would say I didn't know it would descend to the level of killing the people who they claim to be fighting for, in such a crude, brutal way. Some of these killings are shockingly disturbing. I get reports from security officials, and the things I see is very disturbing. And these security officials are Igbos as well. And they're just like, this is what they're doing to their brothers and sisters, And it's a case that we see repeated through history, where those who are supposed to be representing the people, they end up hurting the people who they're representing. For example, this Monday sit at home, who is it really hurting? So you're suppressing the people economically and then killing them. I didn't know that it would be attached to so much ritualism, because there's ritualism in IPOP, which is disturbing. And the support is still there, very strong, with certain populations, even amongst university students. You'll see people saying that they support the cause, but they may not support the way it's being executed, but the cause, they believe in it.
Okay. We will get to some other things that you've been doing. I know you have this project that you've been working on, a documentary on Boko Haram. Where are you with that?
Yes, the documentary focuses on Mama Boko Haram. She is the center of the story. Mama Boko Haram currently is sitting in prison in Maiduguri. She's been charged several times on accounts of fraud, financial fraud, not just herself, but two of her colleagues, with the work that she was doing in her foundation. So getting access to her in the prison is a challenge. And that's where we are now when it comes to the filming of the documentary, is trying to wrap that up to get access to her. But she's such a fascinating woman. every time I talk to her, another layer, I see another new layer from this lady. So I'm learning more about her family. I'm learning there's a whole new layer that has been exposed about her family, and I need to follow that thread. But I think that the role that she plays in Maiduguri with what she was doing, you can't even quantify it. There's no way to quantify it.
All right. At this point, I think we'll take a break. When we come back, we talk about your poetry. We talk about your dance, because most people don't know you're a dancer. You just started a dancing. Is it a dancing school academy in Enugu, I think, and other things that you do. So let's take a break, and we'll be right back.
Thank you. Hey.
She starts in her mind, intent to create. She's a creator, the ultimate one. Licensed, browned, blackened, blessed, gifted, melanin tinted, authorized by the divine to do it. With her breath, we are. From her body, we come, full-formed, shrieking and woke, lathered in her sticky amniotic waters. With her hands, she's pleading, folding, she's shifting, bunching, gathering, pushing away the unnecessary, tucking into herself the necessary, to fortify herself, tying loose ends that go nowhere, but she takes them somewhere, round her head. The African woman, making something out of nothing and then calling it from many tongues. Ichafu for the Igbo, Musur for the Wolof, Kitamba Chakichwa for the Swahili, Tinyong for the Creoles, Tukwi for the Tswanas of Botswana, Duku for the Ghanaians, Chitambala for the Zambians, Gele for the Yoruba. We make this thing. And with every grimace of her face to make this thing, with every grimace in which her lips contort and her brows crinkle, and her shoulders sag under ungodly burdens, and her back aches with the aftershocks of men attacking her earth, and her nights tormented by ungodly nightmares, and her pride bruised by racist blows. With every grimace of her face, she forges ahead, with her head up. And when it falls short of her expectations of what she needs it to be, she tries again, wrapping that load round her head, turning a load into something bold that speaks, echoing what her great and even greater grandmothers spoke when they defied what foreign men were telling them while forcing their way to have sex to them, claimed that they were not beautiful, called them niggers, and made them feel unsightly. The black stain to their white clean, because they didn't understand the beautiful things that African women were creating for their heads to wear. Because inside the head is her mind, the chest of her thoughts. So it needs to be pristine. We leave them there for safekeeping, bring them out when we're needing to evoke and invoke, create and conjure, curse, bless, rejoice, and pray. Amen and amen. Ise and ashe, it is so. It is so that we were made to feel like slaves taken from places of birth. They tried to strip the glory right off our backs, strip, break, and pulverize it into crumbles of nothingness, and make us forget places of our birth, our nest, and even there in lands far from home, African women toiling in the fields wore it. They thought it was her badge of enslavement, of lowliness, of pickaniggers, of Black Mammy personified, and Aunt Jemima stupefied, but we got it back, the glory, because they'd tucked it away and gave it to their daughters, preserving it in the folds of the fabrics that African women mount to wear on their heads to protect the most powerful place of her body, her head, the gateway to her mind, the one they try to mess with whenever she lifts her foot to step it forward and the other one forward. They've toyed with her mind, lit a flame of lies and myths round it to degrade, downgrade, demean, defile, debase, demote, disgrace the African woman. But they forgot that she keeps her glory folded between the wraps of the fabric that she wraps to wear round her head, and that load of magnificent beauty atop her head protects the most important part of her body, her head, the gateway to her mind. She starts creating in the mind, and what you end up staring at is the coronet of cloth, the beautiful load on her head, and it is good. It is so.
Ise.
Okudilio, 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 nyekelanio. Olisa malugo koyene menenua. Okudilio, 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 nyekelanio. Chukuna malugo yobia diocha. Agaranya chogo kowe bili, agaranya chogo kowe rienio. Owe chuku bezie chuku. Nuche chukwa busigi fege meo, nuche chukwa busia ifege meo. Ni fosolo ne asi alibazie. Oboye bebe agaranya muliba, oboye wuru agaranya baby vesolia, mano agaranya wa, oboye afiozi elipakwa. Agaranya chogo kowe bili, agaranya chogo kowe rienio. Owe chikubezio lisa. Kodili ma, kodili bemo, kodili wakema, kodili wanima. Naino kwane we beluge beluo. Kodili ma, kodili bemo, kodili kemo, kodili heyo. Ibedwe me wanem, nikadiezi bohemo.
All right. Welcome back. If we can see me. Welcome back to the show. And we're having a conversation with Chika Oduah, award-winning writer, poet, and everything in between. We are going to get into a different aspect of your life, which is poetry. This is Poetry Month. You are the final guest we are having for this month. So let's talk about poetry. When did you start writing, and what is your drive? What do you plan to? Do you consider yourself a poet first, or a writer, or journalist? Which one is first?
Gosh, that's a hard question. Why do I have to choose?
Okay.
I would say my foundation with writing is poetry. So even my journalism, there is a literary style that comes from the poetry. So I would say poet. Yeah, essentially. That's my foundation as someone who engages in the written word, storytelling through the written word.
Okay, so do you have any book published, poetry book?
No, I don't. I have poems published in books in like when I was a teenager in Georgia, some anthologies there in Georgia. I do not have my own published book. but it's a work in progress. I'm putting something together. I have a title. I think it's nice.
Okay.
But yeah.
Now about your journalism, where are you? I know you started a Zikora media uh, group. I don't forgot the full name of the organization, but what is? Are you still practicing fully, or have you gone to do something for yourself? I know you've been published everywhere, New York Times and New Yorker Magazine. Where are you now? You work for Al Jazeera, Voice of America.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, in the past. But so where I am now is I actually put out a post 2023 announcing I'm ducking out of this mainstream news industry. And so I said that with all kinds of conviction, given reasons why. And that post was retweeted, I mean, hundreds of times. It got a lot of attention. Yeah, so I would say when it comes to what I was doing, the mainstream reporting for the big names, I'm no longer interested in that. That's not what I'm pursuing. And it's such a big shift from who I was, because I had always thought that that was the vision of success that I had for myself, wanting to be a CNN correspondent. That was the vision. I was still a big fan of Christian Amanpour. I wanted to be the African Christian Amanpour. That was my vision of success. My vision of success as a journalist has changed because I realized that my goals, my reasons for doing journalism is not the same as the other people I was working for. And their focus on, the disease, the death, disaster was really all they wanted. And I wrote such stories believing that this is to bring out awareness. So of course I'm going to talk about the corruption and the famine that's happening. It's about creating awareness. And I came with that kind of perspective. But the mainstream media is not about it's not just to create awareness to try to galvanize change. It's just to put out these negative narratives. So for example, when you do talk about, for example, corruption in some sector, perhaps there's now a positive story that comes out of it. I would always want to pitch that positive story that came out of it. Maybe there's a group that's addressing this thing. And when I pitched that, they said, no, we don't want that. So it made me realize, so you only want the bad side. You actually don't want to see the progress that comes after it. No. And so I realized we're not in alignment here. We're just not in alignment. Their objectives were different. I was putting out these news headlines about the challenges in Africa from a perspective that I'm hoping that there'll be positive change. And that's not why the mainstream media is doing it. It's just to get eyeballs, sensationalism. They felt.
All right. I think our guest, the internet in Nigeria, I believe that's where she is, in Nigeria.
Alignment, the international media. There's a lot of, yes. There's a lot of racism in the space when it comes to who they want to be on air. There's so much politics behind it. So what am I doing now? I took a break to work on my book, to get back into my poetry, to go into dancing. That's why I moved to Senegal, because I wanted to go back to my dancing. But now, as of last week, I'm going back to the journalism thing. I've just taken on a role as an editor for an up-and-coming news agency. So as an agency, this organization supplies news to the news organizations, the same way like Reuters does, or AFP agency. So I'm back in the media's like actual journalism as of now, but for the first time playing the role as an editor, not as a reporter. So this means I am going to be involved with shaping the news agenda, which is fantastic, because I get to say this, because sometimes when you turn on the TV, the news, everyone is reporting on the same thing. When you flip through BBC and DW and CNN, they're all reporting on the same 6 stories. So in my position as editor, I get to determine which 6 stories we're going to be talking about. So it's really nice, because it's about your editorial judgment. There are millions of things happening. How did you come to these 6 as being the ones that will be? So that's a very important decision to make. It shapes the entire orientation of what we're talking about. It sets what we even converse about at the dinner table. So it's a very powerful role as editor. And as this role, I'll also be helping to train young journalists. So I'm really excited about it.
Now, people who are in your position, I mean, people who have experience working with international media, always complain about editors in New York, in London, and how they help to shape the story, and sometimes shape it in a way that the reporters on the ground do not like. What do you want to change in your new role as an editor in terms of working with reporters to tell the stories of Africa?
That's a good question. Well, this agency, their entire point is to change the narrative. That's in their motto, that's in their branding. So already they're coming from a place that is different. What they're offering to news companies is a more diverse range of stories, so that's number one. But what I hope to bring to the table, and what they appreciated by what I could offer, which is why I was brought on board, was nuance. I always try to really emphasize stories need to have nuance and context. Those two things are very important. And this may come from my anthropological background, because I studied anthropology, I have a degree in anthropology, and I think it's really important to bring in context, substance. So you have your headline, you have your character, you have your sound bites, but what's in between? And that in between, it is context. Context means what happened here 50 years ago, what happened here 5 days ago. A lot of journalists don't get into that. This is what I want to push to the young people I'll be working with. You have to have context, because when you have context, you recognize it's giving the communities that you're writing about representation. It really is. And it also, so not only does it serve the people you're writing about, it also serves your reader. You've just given them some knowledge, and that's what we're supposed to do as journalists. It's not just to inform, it's to educate, and those are two different things. I've informed and I've also educated you. The way I would say who does it quite well is like NPR. I think they take the time to explain things and give context. Yeah.
It's good you mentioned NPR, because there's an issue now with NPR and the American government.
I know.
Which brings us to the issue of financing. How is the new media you're joining, how are they going to be financed? Most of the media we have in Africa today, they are not sustainable left on their own. They don't have the money. People don't pay for news. So how is that going? How are you going to deal with that? Because the person who finances most likely is going to influence.
Yeah. Well, this agency is donor funded. It's donor funded because it has this mission that is larger than making money. So it qualifies as an NGO. But when it comes to how to sustainably finance a media company, this is an age-old thing here. It's not even like we're just now trying to grapple with this. This is age-old. It's very hard to monetize storytelling, period. Especially when it comes to storytelling that is for the masses, which is what journalism is. It's broadcast. It's cast to a wide audience. It's not exclusive, this kind of thing. So it's always been a challenge. How do you monetize this? Everyone's trying to figure it out. Traditionally, it's been with advertisers. Well, in the West, it was always with advertisers. But now they're seeing that there's so much competition. Advertisers have a lot of places to choose from where it comes to. But advertisement is now it's not the only source of revenue. People are trying to diversify. And now what we're seeing in the Western media is this kind of niche publications. And some of the Asian outlets are doing it as well. There's one magazine that I am a huge fan of. It's based in New York, and it is for the South Asian community. It's called Jagannath. Jagannath is a word in Sanskrit. It talks about disrupting the space. And so they do brilliant, very smart coverage about the South Asian community. So last week I looked at their financing model, like who is financing this thing? They have a subscription base, which is $1.40 every single week. So it sounds relatively cheap. But then also I was looking to see who finances it beyond that, because it says on their About Us page, adverts is not enough. They've got venture capitalists who invested in what they're doing. Because another thing that you have to do as a media company, you have to position yourself as a tech company, not just storytelling, not just journalism. So you have to repurpose yourself. We're tech, we're a platform. So once you start to get into that language, you start to attract those in California, the people in that space, the venture capitalists, that say, okay, this is more than just this, because you have to be a bit multifunctional. So there's that, but also the niche. I think that we need to have niche publications across Africa, because when you have niche, it's less broadcast. It's not just to this massive population. You have to nicheify your content, because that's where you get this loyalty. You get loyals.
Okay. Now, before we go to your dance activities.
If I can mention that niche thing. So who does it well in the Nigerian space is the Republic. The Republic is niche. Not everyone's reading the Republic. And because it's niche, they've been able to get followers and be able to get funding. Once you're a niche, you'll always find funding. Sorry.
Okay. All right. What about online media? Can you speak about that? Because at a point, they appear to be the hope of most of Africa, where newsprints are expensive. Most people cannot afford to buy a newspaper. But that model is also running into problems, because they depended on foundations now, not on advert revenue. Is not there enough to sustain them. So what do you think about the state of the media in Nigeria in general?
I think what media has to do, like I said, it has to be more than just publishing articles. If that's what you're doing, you are not relevant. You have to establish a community. And this community means you have face-to-face meeting, hangouts with people. This is what you build a community. Let's do a coffee gathering. You're more than just publishing articles. So you have WhatsApp conversations. This is what people want. And this is where things are moving. Who does this quite well is Zikoko. Zikoko is the voice of the young people of Nigeria, especially the Lagos kind of Lagosians, basically. And they really have a pulse on what's happening with the young people in Lagos. If you want to know what's happening, Zikoko. And the founder of Zikoko he's a brilliant guy. He thinks through this stuff because he's an anthropologist, the founder of Zikoko. So he knows how to tap into culture and make that relevant. So because when it comes to community, you're now branding yourself. So who do you represent? Are you representing people from lower income? Like who's your community base? And once you do that, it's beyond publishing articles. And then that's when you can monetize, especially when it comes to having events. So some of these media platforms, like in New York, they have concerts. They put together a concert, music, T-shirts. So you're building literally a community. And that's what needs to happen. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're kind of doing with Zakora as well.
You mentioned young writers and young people doing things. I was thinking about writers. Do you follow writing in Africa? I assume you do. Have you read about Tadichie's new book, the novel?
No, I haven't.
You haven't?
Can you tell me about it?
Can I tell you about it?
Yeah.
No. If you haven't read it, that's okay. No, I wanted to know because there have been people who have been talking about the book and the reviews. I've not read it myself. But I wanted to know if you did. But what about the writers in general? What do you think about African writing at this point? How is it going?
I like the diversity. I like it's before it was always it was kind of one note, literary narrative. What I think Chimamanda used to call it loincloth literature. Right. But yeah, it was always quite the same, this literary kind of thing. But now we have genres, and I love that. There's this one Nigerian writer. Her stories are mysterious, like love plots, people killing each other. You see what I mean? So I think I like the diversity in people trying to challenge what an African writer is, because African writer for a long time had a very narrow definition, quite narrow. So people are challenging that. Of course, I still love that classical African literature when it comes to just very literary, beautiful kind of writing. But I like how people are bringing up the genre, and I want to see horror. A friend of mine just put together a murder mystery. He's trying to promote that book. This I like. And of course, Nnedi, she's been doing that with sci-fi, fantasy. I think there's a word. She's quite specific on how she calls her stuff. So I like to see genres, and this I think is refreshing. It's quite refreshing.
Do you happen to know Akweke Emeze? What do you think about her writing?
Yeah, I mean, I know for work. I love her writing. I really do like it. Again, she's in so many genres. She doesn't like to be boxed into a form, but I think the continuity is that her language is very beautiful. Whatever form she's writing, it's just very beautiful language. But she's obviously introducing new ideas, new social cultural ideas, which is very uncomfortable for some people to encounter. Yeah, and so she uses her books to really, not so much to have political conversations, because she's a writer first, and I respect that. But I just do like how she shows us different worlds. She's literally showing us different worlds in her books.
All right. I've just been reminded that we've spent an hour. We didn't talk about the topics, the main topics of today. We've been talking about, that's the danger in bringing someone, so well to be a guest on the show. All right. We are going to, we're going to talk about real lives issues like culture, marriage, Bohemian life, and all that. But before we do that, let's take a little bit of a break and watch you and your dance group perform, and then we'll be right back. I see a lot of people in the studio, so we are going to come to you. Please give us one more break.
Okay.
Welcome back. We're having a conversation with Chika Oduah, who is journalist, writer, poet, dancer, everything. So, dancing, you've been dancing for a long time. I saw pictures from when you were growing up in Atlanta. Where are you taking that to?
Where am I taking that to? This is lifelong, and I'm just so happy I get to go back into it. I wasn't dancing for such a long time to focus on journalism, but now I'm happy that this is the time I'm getting back into it. So I'm doing choreography. I'm supporting dancers as African dancers right now in Nigeria, supporting them. And what I would like to do even further is to continue to study different forms of traditional African dances, to study and practice it. So I'm taking this quite far. This is kind of this is the end of the road for me.
Are you going to integrate any journalism into dancing? What is the connection in terms of where you go in time?
There's a project that I'm developing that's under wraps, but it will definitely combine journalism in terms of reporting current affairs and dance. And so it's currently just it's cooking in the kitchen, and when the meals come out, you'll see it. I'm very excited because, like I said, I'm able to bring together all of the things I love. So I'm bringing it all in. So this is artistic development for dancers. This is a dance program I'm actually leading because here in Nigeria, I am a student. But now for the first time, I'll now be bringing out what I know because I feel I have something to share with dancers in Nigeria. I've been trained in modern dance, and so my dancing, the foundation is different techniques: modern dance, jazz, liturgical. I was trained in liturgical dance. There's also some influences of Afro-Caribbean dance. I love the Haitian dance movement. And of course, there's my Igbo traditional dance, quite rooted in the Egwamala, the riverine Igbo dances. So all of these influences is what I want to now teach. As a dancer, dancers are often known for, the most prominent dancers are known for having a technique. So there's the German Akogni technique. German Akogni is the grandmother of modern dance. There is the Alvin Ailey technique. There is the Pearl Bailey technique, Pearl Primus technique, the Catherine Dunham technique. So I am now in the space where I'm developing a technique. And to do that, it takes a long time. It's about bringing everything that's in you, bringing it out, and making it teachable. And that's where I am now. So you have something you can now teach to other people. But for me, dance is a way to connect my love for Africa.
Who are these?
These are professional dancers. This is the most prominent dancer in Africa. And so it's in Dakar. It's not in Dakar. It's outside of Dakar. Toubab Diallo, Senegal. So this is the most prominent dance school. It's very prestigious. It's quite selective. Getting in it's not easy, but I was able to come in. And so this was an evening where they asked us to present something. So I presented the dance of my community.
And what community is that?
This is Obaru, riverine. So I'm from the riverine side of Nigeria. So Obaru sits in between Anambra River State and Delta State.
Okay. All right. One last thing before we let our audience in, which is Bohemian lifestyle. What does that mean? What does that mean for you?
What does it mean for me? It means being free. I realized at an early age that I think differently from many people. I don't have quite conventional thoughts. My thought pattern is not conventional. And this is something I understood at a very early age. I was always very observant. And I've never followed trends. I've never been a follower. I've always been the kind of person who did her own thing. Ever since I was in elementary school, teachers can say, this girl, she dances to the tune of her own rhythm. I've never been a follower. I've never jumped on the bandwagon. So Bohemian life is just a continuation of what that is. You know, I don't jump on the bandwagon. That's just who I am as a person. And now I'm just honoring it even further with the things that I do. And yeah, that's what it means.
Is there any African example of someone who lived that kind of life that you are talking about?
I love that question. There are some examples. For example, maybe they did it in their own way. One person who influenced me, Herman Chinnery Hesse, he passed away last year, October last year, September. He was a Bohemian in terms of free love. His sexuality was quite open, and the way he lived his life. He had 2 houses, moving back and forth between Sierra Leone and Ghana. He liked to bring people together to have intellectual conversations, and he really impacted me in terms of he's like the marriage thing, and just we had deep talks. But there are others. There are some writers I can think of. Some writers who I know, I don't want to name them because I know them personally, and I don't know if they want to be described as Bohemians. If I can mention people who are not African but are Black, Catherine Dunham, she was a dancer, and she had a Bohemian life. She lived in the US, but then she also lived a little bit. She did some time in Senegal and Haiti. Maya Angelou, I can call her a Bohemian to a certain aspect in terms of she just allowed herself to express herself in many different ways. There was a time she was a journalist, working in Egypt and Ghana. She was a journalist. She was an actress. She was of course, we know her for her writing. But there are Bohemians on the African continent. Some of them are mislabeled, seen as witches, because sometimes they don't follow the mainstream religions, Islam and Christianity.
Will you say that Fela was sort of lived a Bohemian life?
Absolutely. I would say Fela is a Bohemian. I'm surprised I didn't even mention him. Yeah, he was a Bohemian.
Someone, when I put out this that you were coming, someone wanted to know what issue do you have with marriage? What is the issue with marriage? That's how he put it. So
what is the issue?
Yeah.
The issue is that it's based off fear and control. Fear of losing the person. Fear of loss. Fear of loss and rejection.
So is that why people marry?
Oftentimes it's about, because marriage in the conventional sense, I'm talking about conventional. I'm not talking about people trying to define it in their own way. I'm talking about the conventional definition of marriage, which means it's an institution regulated by the government and oftentimes religious institutions. So that's the definition we're working with. We have to establish the definition. So the conventional definition, the issue is that it's based off, people get into it. It's fear. It's let me hold you forever because I don't want to lose you. So there has to be a contract. And how I can even explain this further. Oftentimes you say, okay, you like this person, this lady, this guy, marry them so you don't lose them. It's like
Someone said to me yesterday that I don't understand why Michael Jordan went and married again somebody after the first marriage. What is Michael Jordan afraid of losing? Was Jordan afraid of losing the lady he married? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, because you want to hold people. It's a person. You want to hold the person in your life. Especially if they're considered a good person, especially it's just, and oftentimes women are pushed to marry because they're just like, let me hold on to this good man because there's not many. So it's like, let me hold on. So I think that fear, establishing it on fear, it's any relationship built on fear. It's not a great place to start. There's fear and then there's the control aspect, but you control because of the fear. But I just feel you should let people's feelings do what they need to do. And when you do that, it's a more peaceful relationship.
Let me first ask you, your parents, how are they reacting to that? Have you sat them down to say, look, this is the life I've chosen. Leave me alone?
I wrote and actually put it down in writing because I'm a writer. Like I process through writing. So I wrote it down. I wrote it to them a few years ago. I think it's been about 6 years now. I wrote it very clearly. Because once something is written, you can go back and reread it. Just if they're wondering, they can always go back and read it. So it's not in the air. It's been written down. It's not oral.
So the reaction was okay.
Yeah, the reaction is that they never respond to the email, to the message. I'm sure they're praying, but they don't talk to me about it anymore. They are like, okay. I think that they really think it's a phase. They think it's a phase.
Just for those who are watching, I've known you for a while, so I know you are the Ada. You are the first daughter of your parents. How do you reconcile that traditional role of an Ada with this this decision in terms of the kind of life you want, which is Bohemian life? Does that mean that you are not going to play that role of being the one that would put together the family in the Igbo traditional cultural setting? Yeah, that is very important.
Of course, and I'm incredibly involved in my family's keeping us together, helping, listening to their problems. I'm still very much that. So I don't think being Bohemian takes me away from that, because as a Bohemian, I'm not saying I want to detach from family like maybe someone from a different part of the world may do. I'm very much family oriented, absolutely. And also I feel that being unmarried makes me even more family oriented. And studies have actually shown this, that people who are not married, they tend to take care of their parents. They're more involved with their family because you're not married. They tend to be like this. So it gives me actually more time to even think about my brothers and sisters and my parents.
So if Michael J. Jordan, who is the guy that is very hot now, if the person approached you now, there's nothing anybody can do that will make you say, okay, I'm reconsidering this Bohemian life?
No, because it's such an invasion on my values. Why are you forcing me to stay with you forever? I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I need to be able to leave when I'm ready to leave. So to me, this is a sign of control. You're trying to control me, and it just creates a lot of discomfort. I had some guys who described me as a bird. Okay, fine, I'm a bird. I need to be flying. So I reject being caged in. I don't like it at all.
What is the pushback like for other people when you meet people and you tell them this? What do you hear from Africans especially?
Well, I don't really go around telling this, I just use it more so for intellectual conversation with people who I feel are open-minded intellectuals. Usually they say, no, it doesn't make any sense. You're being Oyibo, you're bringing these Oyibo ideas. Some people have said, like in Senegal, a lot of people understand it. They say, you don't need to be married, but at least have a child. And so in Senegal, you see a lot of women marrying just for a child. Then after they have a child, they get divorced. And I've had some older women in Ghana say, you don't need to get married, but just have a child. So for a lot of in the African context, the children is very important. It's like, just have a child. So that's sometimes what I hear people say.
So are you open to that?
Yeah, that's fine. So, but one thing I want to say is sometimes I get some pushback like, no, you need to get married. It's nice. When I ask them, are you happy in your marriage? They say, no. They open up and say no and start to say, you know what, my dear, if I could do life again, I wouldn't get married. Like people have opened up, older people, to reveal this, like secretly. Good. They wish me, they cheer me on secretly, always in secret. And they say, I wish I had the guts to do what you did, because this marriage thing is nothing. It's hyped. It's built. It's just hyped up to the highest order. It doesn't allow you to live your truest life.
All right. I still reserve the right to ask questions. I have more, but let me allow our audience who are here, who are interested. If you want to join us, please turn on your camera, come into the studio. We'll let you ask a question. And let me start with you, Ovie, on politics. Welcome to the show.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
All right, thank you. Uh, Chika, right? If I'm not mistaken. Thank you for your time. I think as the first person, I have the right to ask just one question. But first, I have one disagreement. Dr. Damiji. Now, I think I disagree with the framing of your response to Dr. Damiji when he asks you about what is going on, particularly to our continent, the way young people are reacting to strongman leadership, like using Traore as an example. You frame it to mean that it's a new phenomenon. I think if we frame it like that, we are making excuse for the failure of post World War II consensus, which center around democracy, fairness, trade union, full employment, and all those good stuff. And as we see today, if you want to carry the result, you can tell there are more people in the line of living below poverty. Few people take advantage of that consensus and run away with it. So it's the reaction, the natural reaction that you are seeing, that if all this we togetherness, one word is not, it's not working. Let's try that nation state of a thing, which I also see that you kind of existent to actually recognize what a nation state is today's world. You know, it's a cult. Just like I see you use that word office a lot of time when you are responding to the question of
Catholic
Pope
Church.
dying. It's a cult. It's a cult. The nation state too is a cult. I think, as I say, we are seeing the general natural reaction to that. That, you know, let's guide ourselves, and we need one man, one strong person to do that. It's not new. Something that happened before that actually led to World War II. So to say that is new, you're making an excuse for the failure of that. That's just my disagreement. But my question center around the Chibokes and Boko Haram. Too. I was glad to hear that you're writing a book that had to do with that. But as someone, I think among the first journalists to actually be on ground in Chibok to give a direct report of situation of things. Now, looking back to perspective that you report that story from, with the current development, the expose that is coming from Congress by Senator Scott Perry, saying that they literally are responsible of the kidnapping of the Chibok girls. I mean, paraphrasing, but that's pretty much, if you sponsor the people that did that, pretty much you are the one that actually did. So now looking back and reconciling with this expose, I mean, I'm curious to know if there's any adjustments of how you report, or I mean, what's general, how did that expose hit you?
All right, Chika.
Yeah, thank you so much. I don't know if you've been to northern Nigeria, northeastern Nigeria, but when you go there, you realize that there are several international forces. You just mentioned
I've
one, the
actually
US.
been to Chibok. My first girlfriend was from Chibok, actually.
Oh wow! Okay, so she's Kibaku.
Yep.
Okay, that's fine. That's fantastic. You don't meet so many of them. Yeah. So when you go to northern Nigeria, especially Lake Chad region, which Chibok is quite a bit far from Lake Chad, you realize that it's more than just. There's suspicions that there are several people involved. So when I talk to a lot of people, the Kanuri people, often the people who live after Lake Chad, even into the country Chad itself, Niger, oftentimes there's concerns about French involvement. Very much, you hear this. So we heard, obviously this supposed, expose from the American. That's just one angle. I'm always interested in getting as many angles as possible, because I really feel that we have to look at the international players. Oftentimes, African journalists just stop at the local level. Local meaning just people who have black skin, but it's larger than that. So for me, it's not even just about the Americans. I'm very interested in what the French. I'm looking into that. Beyond the French, who else? Who else is in that space? Because the history of French in West Africa is big. Most of the West African countries are French. And there's always been this, Nigeria for France has always been an elephant in the room. Former French president said this. So it's always been a problem to have this big English-speaking country in a largely French-speaking region. So to me, to find the American thing it brings some interest, obviously, but I like to look at the bigger picture of things. And we oftentimes seen these Western forces come together for something. You know, when it comes to assassinations, it's not just one country. You see them come together, you know.
All right. Thank you.
But sorry, but that's not an allegation. It was a confession. That of French and the rest of the world is an allegation, but this is a confession. They've confessed to take out the act. So I know there's a lot of other countries that are involved, but this is somebody come out and confess that I did it. I am part and parcel of this. The rest is an allegation until they get to confess, or we find out as you are into investigation. But this is a confession. They came out and say, "Come, we are responsible for this."
Mm-hmm. What I want to say that there's a larger story. So that is one piece of information to put into the larger story.
All right. Thank you, Obi.
Thank you.
Kene, you're next. Oh, can I hold on? Let me go to ladies first because it's not.
Yeah, ladies first.
Yeah.
She's our mama.
Victoria, welcome to the show. Nice to see you. You are muted. Can you unmute yourself, please?
Thank you so very much, Nam Okonkwo.
Nice to see you again.
Everybody, please, I'd rather Kene goes before I go.
All right.
Daluma, thank you.
Go.
Yeah, good day, Dr. Damages, and good to see you, my sister. I was on the comment section asking some questions, but I hope you are not reading the comment section. So the thing is, let me start with the last stuff you said about why people marry. You said that some marry because of children. But I agree with that, but I want to add to that. I think some said on the comment section, some said that they actually married because of Bakassi. And this guy, Flavor Nabania, sang a song, Lukinyash killing goats. So people marry for different reasons. Some marry because of love and all that, right? But while you were answering questions from Dr. Damages, you stated that you don't really understand Nigeria. And I was like, why wouldn't she understand Nigeria? She's a journalist. But when he asked question about IPOB, and your response actually attests to the fact that really, indeed, you don't really know Nigeria. Because if you do understand Nigeria, you would have known that it is in the same Nigeria that the citizens will be protesting against the bad leadership, and the same leaders will recruit some citizens to protest against the protesters. I mean, to protest in the favor of the government. Now, in the same Nigeria, we have IPOB. IPOB simply, they are fighting for the interests of Ndibo, right? We have Nnamdi Kanu, and then later we have Simon Ekpa. They are all fighting for the interests of Ndibo. And we have forgotten that we're in Nigeria, that it is only in Nigeria that when you want to kill a dog, you give it a bad name. And that is why we had somebody like Hope Uzodinma and Umahi of Ebonyi State that came out openly and told us that they recruited Ebubago to fight against the interests of Ndibo. What was the interest of Ndibo? The ESN and other security outfits that were set up by IPOB to protect our men and women in the farm. So they recruited Ebubago to fight against these people. And now, for some of us that really understand Nigeria very well, we know that there were imposters that pretended to be IPOB members. They go about with IPOB flag and all that. And a clean example to that was during the 2023 election, when APC agents had LP banners, Labour Party banners, while trying to rig the election, telling the people, telling whomever that holds the camera that they are Labour Party agents, while we know them to be APC agents. Now, when Hope Uzodinma, Dave Umahi, and Ifeanyi Ubah recruited Ebubago went against ESN. They even they will have their stations, their roadblocks on our major roads, working hand in hand with Nigerian security personnel. The Nigerian security personnel know where they are. But the ignorant ones, the clueless ones, will assume that they are IPOB. And they will also always tell the people that they are IPOB members. Whenever they attack the people, whenever they do their killings, they will say that we are IPOB. No, IPOB don't kill, and IPOB will never kill the people that they were meant to protect. That was what is going on, what went down. And then you stated that you had your information, you received your information from Igbo security personnel. And I assume these Igbo security personnel are either hired by the federal government or the state government. So they receive their earnings from the federal government. And it is very understandable that they will be working for their paymasters. So you don't expect them to tell you the truth. They know the truth, but they will never say it because they have their own interests to protect. Now, the Nigerian government, I mean, you made a statement which I wrote down. You said that people control because of fear. So now I want to put it this way. Nigerian government control the narrative because of the fear of losing the grip to power. That is what is going on in Nigeria. So our people, IPOB, the ESN or other security personnel that they created to protect our people are simply working for the interests of Ndibo. If they kill our people, I, Kenechukwu, will come out and condemn them, and I will disassociate myself from their activities. But as for now, as till today, they are clean and they are working for the interests of Ndebai. Thank you, my sister.
All right, Kene, that was long. Okay, Chika.
Yeah. So I would say, would you say that there are some affairs that happen in Nigeria that you find doesn't make sense, senseless?
Some affairs in Nigeria? Nothing in Nigeria makes sense to me. Everything in Nigeria is senseless. And it's very difficult to understand, just as the way you stated. Very difficult to understand.
That's the point I was making. You can know Nigeria, but not understand it. Because there's things that doesn't make sense. When you say understand it, it means it makes sense. So I wanted to clarify that. There's so many senseless things that happen here that there's no sense behind, there's no rationale. It's such a complex country, 3,000 ethnic groups. So I wanted to really put that forward. It's pretty much impossible to understand this country, to make sense of everything that's happening. When it comes to the cause of the Southeast, I completely understand. I mean, I live here, in my family, I understand the plight, because it is a plight. It's not an imagined plight at all. I don't believe it's not an imaginary thing. It is real. And I feel that the conversation about how our existence as Igbo people, it needs to be a concrete conversation. It needs to be an intelligent conversation. What I don't like is narratives that are not based off of facts. So, for example, looking for lineages of Igbo ancestry outside. I mean, I've heard so many different stories, whether you want to say Ethiopia, because I've heard that one. I've heard even Afar, the Afar people in Ethiopia, the region of Afar in Ethiopia. This is where Igbos come from. So I don't like fake science. I don't like pseudoscience. I don't like pseudo history. And oftentimes groups that have this nationalist agenda, sometimes it can fall into those traps. We see this in the United States with with some of these supremacist groups, false narratives in terms of history, lineage, facts. This is where I don't want us to get into because we're too intelligent for this. Right? I feel we should be more intelligent. We should be discerning. That's what I would like, discernment. But that conversation of who we are as a region, what we contribute to this country, that is a very real conversation, very necessary, one I'm personally quite interested and sympathetic to.
All right. Thank you, Kenneth. Let me say that before we go to Victoria, that Chika also has been working on Biafran War Memorial. You've been documenting interviews, conversations with people who were there during the war, and people who are interested can look it up online. I think it's I don't remember the website. I'll find it before the show is over.
Let me even speak. I'm glad you mentioned that because that speaks to the point that there is a real plight that people. It's such an uncomfortable conversation. That my Biafra War Memories, which I started in 2017, interviewing hundreds of people. It's an ongoing project. It's blocked in Nigeria. You cannot access it. You cannot. You can only access it from outside Nigeria. And this blockage happened in 2017, 2018, at the height of the Nnamdi Kanu trial situation. It was now blocked. Up till now, that IP is blocked. Why? So this was a general blockage that happened during the Buhari administration, where many websites that have Biafra in its URL were blocked, including mine. Why? So obviously there's something there. We're not denying it. But I'd like to approach things with intellectualism, with sound history, sound science.
All right. Thank you. Madam Victoria, welcome. You're muted. Okay, good.
Nna m Okonkwo, ndewo.
Ndewo.
Eze nwanyị Chika. I don't know whether you understand Igbo language or not.
She does.
I'm not fluent. It's in progress. So you can say what you want to say and still translate. Thank you.
Sure. Before I come to you, kene.
Good to see you, ma.
Biko nna m Okonkwo, ihe ọbụla ọ sọkwara ede, whatever is written on the name that I come with, I am Mbore.
I know that.
Yeah. And I would like to be called Mbore. Always. Eze nwanyị Chika. People like you make life extra meaningful for me. Yes, you do make life extra meaningful to me. I laughed when you say you went back to dancing, because you don't know that. Maybe you do, but just to put it in a way that it will be understood by all the rest. You are never ever separated from dancing. Meaningfully dancing. You that I'm looking at. Every sentence you make, every facial grimace, everything about you is communicating that life that dancing gives. And when you said something to the note of unconventional, I said, wow. Being different, bohemian, whatever you express it as. Girl, don't be offended if I call you girl. I don't know if I shared it with this platform. When I used to believe in what they call God, I used to teach my children how we pray. So one day we were praying and it got to a point and we say, God, you did this. God did it. Girl. And when we said girl, we meant God. If you didn't God, girl. And we all started laughing, but we all knew we were talking to God. So when you are, okay, mostly there are girls in this house. So when we really want to show you that we love you, we go, girl. So when we called God, girl, my son said, I don't know what this means. I don't know what you're praying. So girl, I am mighty proud of you. Dance as there is nothing but dancing. Even when you sit still, you dance. And that's the only truth I know. Yes, being different is exceptional. That's second to what I know to be true. When you gave your reasons for people getting married, or what people say their reasons for getting married is, I never thought it. I never thought about it or characterized it with being free. It's all right if people want to have children. It's really okay. If you want to have children, it's okay. But if you ask me, I will say it's a whole lot of lies on earth. A whole lot of lies. I was brought up with the Bible. And believe me, I was living like the Bible. You don't want to go there. When I came to, actually, anybody asked me, or if anybody asks me, how old are you? I don't know. When were you born? I don't know. I may have been there, but I didn't know. Well, what do you write down? Okay, 68 or 86, whichever one is easier for you. 98, 96, or 69, whichever you want to write, you write. But go all through that time, I was living with and about what they call the truth. If you live like that, people call you naive. People make, you won't have any friend as such, because, boy, they have put something in the way they put it, and they know that when you come, you'll be like, no, it shouldn't be like that. And because of that, you are nobody's confidant. Nobody. But when they are looking for clarity, they will come to you. They will, no, call Victoria. Is Victoria working today? No, tell her to come. We'll pay her. You understand what I'm saying? Your life is the absolute truth, the way it can be, the way it should be, the way anybody will understand it. If they give me the whole day to talk, I won't shut up. That is how you've excited me, girl. Keep it up. Keep on moving. If you don't want to have kids, I'm telling you, I love my children. There are two of them. Or they are countless. Everybody in the whole wide world is my child. But girl, to bring up your children the way that you will align with them, not that they should be like you, just alignment. You will then know the value of my saying, only have children if you so desire. Otherwise, you end missing nothing. Keep on keeping on, girl. Keep on keeping on. I will want to find out how to connect you, because I want to get the great grandmas dancing. You hear me?
Okay. No problem. Thank you so much, Ma. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's so heartwarming. Thank you.
So,
I
Dr.
really-
Damages,
Yeah, go ahead, Kene.
I want to seek for clarification.
All right.
It's very tempting. Sometimes I try to stay away from comment section, but I can't help it. So on the comment section, I'm being accused of being is it Bohemian? Like boho. I don't know what that is. So they were accusing me. And I was like, okay, let me ask you, our guest. Do Bohemians date? Do they go into relationship? Or do they stay single forever? And I want to know, I don't know if I'm permitted to ask this. Since you're a Bohemian, are you in a relationship? Are you single? Because a lot of brothers on the comment section, I don't know what is really wrong today. Maybe it's because it's Sunday. So please, clarification, please.
Did you say you are accused of being a Bohemian? You yourself?
Yeah, they said I'm even a Bohemian Pro Max, so I don't even know what that is.
Mm. I think Bohemian is someone who is different, who is unconventional, who is a bit whimsical, even. You know, this quirky. Bohemians, you look at them when they pass by, they don't just fit in, they don't blend in. You know, I would call them the peacocks, you know, of the bird community. That's the Bohemian. People who stand out. So if they say you're a Bohemian, I say wear it loud and proud. I think it's a
Okay.
great thing. It's
So
nothing
do
to
they date? Do they go into relationship, or do they stay single?
Bohemians do what they want to do. That's the entire point.
Okay, like me now, me that I can date, I can, go into relationship, I'm fine then, even if I'm a Bohemian, right?
Bohemian, there's no doctrine, and that's
Oh,
the entire point. There's no doctrine. You live
oh,
the life as you feel. You know, it's you challenge what people ask you to do. You challenge convention. It's not even also you're not trying to be oppositional for no reason. It's just you want to be true to who you are. That's
okay.
all it is. You want to raise your voice when you feel your voice needs to be raised. There's no doctrine. I don't follow doctrines. There's no rule book on how to be Bohemian.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Okay, so Chika, let me ask you. Let's go on this Bohemian thing. So, as an Igbo woman, what do you find wrong in Igbo society, especially how women are treated?
You want to get me in trouble with this question? I mean, even when we say Igbo society, I feel that is a generalization, to be honest. I don't like just that whole, society. There's so many facets of it. And I don't even want to just single out Igbo society. Every society has its issues. Even if I go to New York, are you talking about when it comes to the treatment of women specifically?
Yeah.
So I don't want to single out Igbo society. I won't do that. Because it's when I say we should re-examine culture, it's every culture on the planet, whether you're in California or Mexico or Zimbabwe. Every culture should be examined. Is this element progressive? I feel like culture should be something that makes sure that there is equity for all, whether you are in a wheelchair, if you're blind, if you're young, old, everyone should be seen as bringing value to the society. No one is lesser than. That's how I define equality. We all have a contribution to make. No one, that's my definition.
You're also an anthropologist, and which means that you study society. And we agree that culture and tradition, they're constantly changing. And when we were discussing yesterday about Catholic Church and the Pope and the changes they need to make or they must make to sustain their structure, one of them is the role of women. It's not possible for them to continue to keep women where they are, for them to continue as a church, and especially in the Western society. So when you look at Africa, do you think, because there's feminism in Africa now, and a lot of people are basically kicking against that. They don't understand it. They don't understand why women are complaining, what they want. Can you explain that?
Explain feminism.
Yeah, in terms of Africa, how it pertains to Africa, and why African men are kicking against that, most of them.
Yeah, it's very funny seeing men here. They turn red in the face when you mention the word feminism. The kind of anger that is triggered when you talk about feminism here, it's just fascinating. I grew up in the United States, and when I moved to Nigeria at the age of 26, I didn't really have culture shock. And I'm still in Africa. People are very surprised. Oh, you're still here? Yes, I love this continent. So I'm living in between Nigeria and Senegal. I love this place. This is where I am. I am home here. I can breathe here. This is where I am. But what did shock me coming here to the continent, because first I was in Kenya, then Nigeria, now Senegal, is seeing direct patriarchy. This did shock me. For example, if I can give a story, there was one time I was still new to Nigeria, 2014. I was in the bank. I was at GT Bank, Central area. in the line, in the queue. Let me use British English. In the queue, like everyone else. And then now it was time for me to come to the clerk after waiting for 1 hour. So then one big guy comes out of nowhere wearing this big agbada and just comes in front of me and, and starts to talk to the clerk to make his transaction. And so I'm standing here, I'm kind of small. My stature is a bit small. So people sometimes disregard small girls. I don't have a big body. So I'm standing here and this guy is just jumped from out of nowhere to make his transaction. So after he spoke, I now spoke to the clerk and said, excuse me, I was here first. I need to do this. I said it in a very gentle voice. And this guy next to me, he looked at me and he starts shouting. He says, hey, who is this small girl? And he's, starts beating his chest like this, do you not know who I am? And I never looked at him. I never responded to him. And I just kept speaking to the clerk directly. I never even turned my face to look at this guy. Excuse me, this is what I need to do. So please carry out the transaction. And the guy is getting so loud, shouting, like, what, just like so upset that I wasn't even looking at him. I never addressed him at all. And then after finally, even the clerk was very nervous. They didn't know what to do. She's there like wringing her hair. I don't know, because obviously she knows I've been standing there. And then there's this big man doing this with his agbada. So she didn't know what to do, And I think what really enraged this man was the fact that I never even looked at him, because I think a lot of people would have just engaged in a back and forth, and now you have two idiots looking like idiots. I don't do that kind of thing. So I just never looked at him, and he's there just getting loud. He essentially showed his own self. He showed his character. So then the supervisor had to be called. And then this guy's like, you know who I am? Who is this girl challenging me? Who is this? Who is this? And then the supervisor, a man, I would have to say, said, sir, she was here first. We will attend to her. So I had to applaud that guy for standing up for me, small girl. This guy stood up for me. So that's what happened. But these are the kinds of encounters I saw when I first moved to Nigeria. And that was the biggest culture shock. But like I said, in this case, it ended in my favor. So these are the small little victories that have to happen. But living in Nigeria, I've heard some things I have never heard in my life. One thing that are just lies. One thing that I've heard is there's more women in the earth than men, population-wise. That's not true. And I've only heard that here. And people say this to justify things like, you'll hear Muslims say to justify polygamy. And also they use it to justify this women's supposed desperation. So they say, oh, there's more women. If you just talk to a scientist, a geneticist, someone who looks at demographics, it's actually equal around the world. Nature balances itself. The only case where you may find an imbalance for some years is warfare. We saw what happened with Rwanda. But nature balances itself. The population of men and women worldwide, it's virtually equal. So there's this myth that men are outnumbered by women. That's not true. Another thing I've heard here, things like if you give a woman small power, they go far. All of these myths, misrepresentations that are recycled here. One thing I like to say to men who like to say these things is some of the things that they say about women, like if you give women small power, is exactly what white people in the US say about Black people. The exact. So I always say sexism and racism are two sides of the same coin. We can't give women power. Women are lazy. This is the same thing white people who are racist say about Black people. So and then sometimes when I mention that, they don't really know how to respond. But these isms, basically social constructions to put people in a certain place, whatever it is, ageism, sexism, they're always about putting a certain people in place so that a certain group of people have a certain power. That is all. And so some people just don't want to lose that power.
All right. Let's go back to the Biafran War memorials. Memories. I think I'm calling it wrong. Memories. What is the interview that you don't forget that you conducted in that series? How many interviews do you know?
So far, it should be about, some haven't been published, but it's more than 100 and it's still ongoing. I interviewed an Indian woman last year who she was living in the northern part of Nigeria and also the south. So that's going to be published. I interviewed Philip Effiong Jr., who was on your show. I really liked Igwe Christopher Ejiofor, the ADC, Ojuku's ADC. I really liked that interview. And I met him in his community here in Enugu, Eziagu. He was on his throne because obviously he has a title in his community. So I think what I liked about his interview was that he was very clear. I mean, being right there in the political situation of the Biafra movement, he knew the inside of what was happening. You know, he knew all of the diplomatic moves that the Biafrans were making to, for example, get recognition. So I liked that. He gave inside information into the political maneuverings that were happening. Many people talk about, you know, the camps, the Caritas, the humanitarian relief, but this guy just gave that political insight that I really appreciated. So his, I really liked. Another one that really touched me, because in my Biafra War memories, I talked to all sides. And I talked to some of these Irish humanitarians. I've spoken to journalists who covered. I've spoken to, of course, Biafrans. I've spoken to Nigerian military personnel. One Nigerian military personnel I interviewed from Plateau State, he broke down and cried, talked about how he lost his brother on the battlefield. That was very moving, you know, because he was almost embarrassed that he started crying. You know, he lost composure, then he tried to gather himself. And that's one thing I try to do. These are very long conversations. Sometimes it'll go 4 or 5 hours. And I just let them speak. I let them speak. So this is a very personal project for me. And I'd like to even talk about the origin of this project. My parents never spoke about the war, which is the story that many of us have. Our parents never told us. It wasn't until I was about 18 in the US, my mother mentioned, we were watching the news. It was like the Middle East, the famine. And my mother said that she used to be a refugee one time. So we're watching the news, looking at refugees. And my mother said, oh, I used to be a refugee. And I said, what? It's so bizarre. How is my mom refugees? I'm thinking Ethiopia, Syria. My mother was a refugee. And I was just absolutely floored. She had never told me this. So that's what started this trail for me to know what, you know. So I went to my village, mother's side, my mother's side and father's side, talked to people on the ground. I'm still doing it. You've introduced me to some people, Rudolph in New York. This is something I'm deeply passionate about and my inspiration really is looking at how the Jewish people have documented what they lost during the Holocaust. They take that story so seriously. It's a sacred story. This is what we lost. And they do so much documentation. That's what I'm doing with Biafra War Memories. These stories, they cannot be lost. You know, we have to put this together. And I like the fact that it's normal people talking about what happened. I'm not just looking at the Obasanjo, stuff like this. It's the everyday people. You know, that war didn't just affect southeastern Nigeria, it affected the entire Africa as far as I'm concerned. That's one of the most, that thing was a milestone. That war is part of world history. And that's what I want people to understand. It's not just Nigerian history. This is world history. And this is why museums have come to me asking to put some of that information in their museums.
All right. Thank you. AY, welcome.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Dr. Damages. Good afternoon, Chika. I've been listening to you. Quite interesting conversation. I'm actually seeing another Chimamanda in you. You made mention of something. You mentioned that the possibility of Nigeria descending to ethnic militia. So I kind of agree with you, but what make you think that though? And do you think the government understand this? And how do you think we can prevent it? That is one. Then on the issue of Bohemia, I kind of have a bit of concern. It seems to me that we are just carving out a new name. I don't have issue with feminism. I'm one of the biggest fans of Chimamanda. We just kind of carry another name out of the feminism because the issue people have with feminism is people misuse it. When I look at Chimamanda, when I listen to Chimamanda, I appreciate feminism, but I don't want feminism that you just hate men because you are a feminist. I have feminism that makes sense, like you rightly said. Like you rightly said, you said something I find very interesting. We should upgrade our discussion intellectually, which I find very interesting. That's why I wanted to come to you. The concept of the Bohemia, do you see it along this way that you want to give if people might misinterpret it, especially the young one, when they hear this from you, it tells us because now the Gen Z they love freedom more than freedom itself. So, are you not scared that if they hear this, it's gonna be a different line for them entirely? They're gonna misinterpret it. Those are two questions. Maybe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, AY. I appreciate that. That's very good. Thank you for your thoughts and for following. The first question about this ethnic militia, that was a very specific context. If you recall, Rudolph was talking about this rise that we're seeing with the Hausas wanting to really identify themselves distinct from the Fulani ethnic group. So it was in that context that I made that statement. So I was saying in terms of that context with Hausas trying to define themselves, their history, their culture is different. They're not even just history and culture, their needs as a people, they say are different. In this case, we might see what we normally see in Nigeria, militias. It's the way, unfortunately, disgruntled people communicate. You have to, because the government is not listening, so people now find ways to communicate. You may call it vigilanteism, all these things. But people take up arms. Non-state actors take up arms. And I believe we will start to see that further and further. In the beginning of there was a certain time where this Boko Haram, some people would even call it a Kanuri militia. I heard people describe it as that in the early days. It's a Kanuri thing. Correct. Mm-hmm. Which is why like Sokoto, the North West didn't really focus on Boko Haram. This is the Kanuri issue. You see that ethnic coloration before it now became more cosmopolitan. Boko Haram is cosmopolitan. They now let the doors open for other people to join, including people from the South. So that was a specific context. Now I think there might be some confusion with Bohemian. I'm not trying to say that Bohemian is a type of feminism. Bohemian just means, Rudolph used the word free thinker. That's a word I hear a lot in Nigeria. And I don't like to give myself labels. But I will say I'm someone who likes to live authentically. I don't typically follow the crowd. I've never been that kind of person. So in that understanding, some people may say, you're a Bohemian. Okay, fine. I mean, there are some people in the past who are described as Bohemians that I align with. It just means you tend to create your own world. You live in your own world. And there tends to be a certain intellectualism with Bohemians as well. They typically question things. And that's a sign of intellectual curiosity. You have to question things, you ask questions. Growing up as a child, I was the biggest question asker. Maybe that's why I became a journalist. And my father always took the time to answer my questions. So he's the one who made me the way I am. So I grew up in a household where my father, he allowed me to ask questions. And he liked us, his daughters, for being women who can be on their own. We have our own thoughts. My father encouraged this. You need to have thoughts of your own. Don't let someone else think for you. And that's what I'm saying. Don't let other people think for you. I can think for myself. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, AY. Just a question from I'm getting some questions here. Someone wanted to know if we all become Bohemians and shun marriage, what would the world look like? I'm sure that we are not going to be, all of us are not going to be, but just think about it. He wants to know if it happens that most people will embrace that idea, what happens to us?
I love that question. I really like that question. Everyone is different and everyone has a role to play in the society. That's all. You need to find what role are you playing. You have to have your Martin Luther King's, change makers, your innovators, and then you have people who are conservative people, and they have a role to play. If you look at, for example, the United States before, I'm not talking about the current iteration, but the left wing and the right wing were always checks on each other somehow. You know, you can't get too left, you can't get too right. There was always this moderation that should be grounded upon wisdom and for social good. So you need to know, what role do you want to play in society? Do you want to be someone who respects tradition? There's a place for you. Absolutely. There is a place for you. In the American context, you have those people who always go back to what was the original intent of the founding fathers. Those are people who are traditionalists. Let's not forget our traditions. There is a place for them. Then you have some people who say, let's not let tradition prevent us from moving forward. There's a place for everyone in this world. And I'm not advocating for anyone to be anything. But what I do want to say is, think for yourself, find peace for yourself. That's where I'm coming from. That's
So,
one thing I would
so let me add this. So, the way you were explaining it, I'm still a bit confused. So, are you saying in a clear terms, when you say Bohemia, do what you like, you said, right? Are they at the establishment, at the processes? Like, is that so? Okay, in the context now, let's say you're working.
I'm not saying yes to say, I'm not
Okay,
nodding.
okay. The reason I'm asking that, because I have concern. You're working with a company that are telling you this is the process you need to go. This is our rules. These are states you need to do. So how do you act as a Bohemia? Is it improving the processes, or you just not? No, I'm gonna make my new rule to do what I like. So can you just clarify in that area?
Yeah. AY, I want to clarify again, I'm not following any doctrine. And I'm not wearing a label of Bohemian. It's, some people use it as an adjective. It's not a noun. So it's not a political party. You understand? It's like when some
Right.
people may, you know, it's not that. So you're asking me to think hypothetically, what would I do here? And I can't answer these questions. It's being spirit led. You know?
Spirit led.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes. You're individual. You have something inside of you that speaks. You know, you also have voices of wisdom around you. You know, you have people, you have mentors, and all these people are part of your listening box. So
Okay.
it's not like there's no book I'm reading.
Okay. Then, Rudolph, you know, nobody is here. Let me just the last thing I want to comment on before I start this last one, Rudolph. You made mention about the polygamy thing, right? Then you went ahead and said, "Oh, men and women, they are kind of equal." I mean, I don't have problem with that, but you need to also accept the fact that these men, they die before these women. If you take statistics, obviously, like this is just empirical evidence shows men die before women, right? So meaning you got to have a lot of women that are single, right? I know you don't probably believe in marriage too much, which is okay. Then the other thing is the range of men ready for marriage. You could classify it as, say, from 20 to 65, who up to 70. Like Rudolph can get a new wife now. So You know, so that's
Mm.
it's very wide, right?
Okay.
Mathematically speaking.
Okay.
When you look at the case of women get to 40 that they are, it really depreciates people that are willing to want to marry them. It really
Okay.
depreciates because men, this is just the reality, right? So don't you think if the concept of Bohemia too, everybody want to be free. If the women choose to say they want to go into polygamy, don't you think as an African woman it's something you should encourage? Is marriage kind of brings some level of discipline in the society.
Mm.
Family brings level of discipline. You might disagree, but it's just my personal thought. I just want you to talk around it.
Yes, I like those questions. I like the way you kind of consider things. Yes, marriage is exactly that. It's a regulator. That's exactly what it is. So I feel you've answered your own question. But when it comes to, there's something called polygamy, as you've already referenced many times. There's also something called non-monogamy, which is not exactly polygamy, but non-monogamy. And in many traditional African societies, non-monogamy is the normal thing. For example, where I live in Senegal, in the southern part of Senegal, the Casamance region, married women have boyfriends traditionally. Traditionally, and it's not a scandalous thing. This is their tradition. It's even so much that if you go to some villages in southern Senegal, and so in Senegal is mostly Muslim, it's a predominantly Muslim society with some Christians. But some of the villages you go to in southern Senegal, the guy, if he's out, maybe doing his day stuff, and he comes and the wife is home, if he sees a pair of shoes that's not his, he has to leave. That means the wife has a male guest in her bedroom. And he has to respect it. And he just walks away and waits for the shoe to go away. So they told me this is their tradition. I lived in Kenya first. Again, old women were telling me, we have boyfriends. Our husbands even know our boyfriends. And our husbands, sometimes they're friends with each other. I'm sure we know, like this, isn't it Benways? There's a cultural group that if a man's friend comes, he brings his wife as a form of hospitality. You can, so non-monogamy within a marriage.
That has caused problem on this platform before.
Exactly.
That's the issue.
I don't even know who still practices that anyway in Benue State.
But the first one you just said, I will agree with you. The first time I saw that was with the Filipinos women. I noticed they are married. I remember asking one, telling me about boyfriend. I'm like, but you are married. Like, I was surprised, right? As an African man, like, she was bold at talking about it. I'm like, oh, you're married, right? She looked at me like, this guy is from some bushy area. I'm like, yeah, I kind of agree with you.
Yes, but this is historical. This monogamy thing, I feel this is more recent. So non-monogamy, it's. I feel like there was so much wisdom in our indigenous communities. They understood human relationships, one person for your whole life. The reason why perhaps we don't know about it now is we don't really talk about sexuality. In the traditional African context, sexuality is not a political public conversation. It's a private one. There's a sacredness to sexuality. You don't need to be knowing this wife. It's a private thing. And that's why some of these things are not quite known. But it's almost an open secret. There's, the queen mothers in Ghana, several male partners, several.
All right.
Thank you.
Anyway, thank you. Let's get to Mbori again, and then I see Okija. Okija is going to bring down the house, but Chika, I thought we are safe home, but Okija is here. Okay, Mbori, go ahead.
Hello, everybody. Once more. Am I coming out? Anybody hearing me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. Chika, I'm saying right now what I didn't say before to you, that your name is Chika Oduah. It's an elixir to my old head. Do you by any chance understand what is it? How do you say Odua? How do you say it?
So Oduah is not an Igbo word, actually.
Okay.
It has an
Okay.
Igala roots. It's actually a
Okay.
title. It's a title in Igala land, Oduah.
Oh, thank you. And you know the meaning.
It's a
If you
title. It's a
okay.
title. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. In Igbo land, maybe it's like that in Igala. If you find out what does this title mean, you know, kind of a thing. And I'm proud of you saying that you are getting yourself acquainted, uh, uh, being comfortable with speaking. You know, I am so very proud of you. There are two things you said I want to contribute a little bit in. When you said when you came back to Africa, you saw what patriarchy or how men's superiority over women. And you also said something that's very, very important there for me, that it is worldwide. Then by the time you got done with the last question you answered, I want to thank you so very much for buttressing the fact that people should, I'm just going to paraphrase it, respect each other for what each individual brings to the table, for who the individual is. In what I am seeing, okay, I used to watch here what they call Gunsmoke. It in some society, their men see women as expendable. A gentleman went for a mission, and as they were going, Betty Lou has served all they wanted her to serve. Then the gentleman that was keeping Betty Lou said, "Well, I can kill you now." And this is a series, television series, but it kind of depicts what used to happen in this country, United States of America. I can kill you now because I don't have any use of you, and you know too much to live. Whether people get married for any reason, whether when uh, in Africa certain things are done women cannot do. Do you even know you're a woman? You shouldn't, because you're a woman and all that, you are a woman. Could be helped a lot if we pay attention to what you have said, where we respect human beings for what their contribution to living is, instead of looking at them and say, well, you're a woman. Reasons for which people marry, maybe I haven't, at 69 or 96, I still haven't paid attention to why people get married. Maybe you are a woman. You should run up and down. You should do this, do that, and even remember that and look for that. Can you look for the remote? And I should have the remote. And the rest of stuff like that. A woman should be running around and do what a woman should do. And I am thankful that people who are thinking like you are not just stopping at any point, but carry it on. That the most important thing is for human beings, for humanity, to consider respecting each other because of a different thing each and every one of us brings to the table. You know,
All
thank
right.
you so very much.
Thank you so much, Bore. We have Okija, we have Prince Akwachi, and I have two more questions here. So let's go to Okija first. Okija.
Good day, everyone. Chika Oduah, thank you for coming. I'm familiar with Obaru. Most of some of our people, they spend time farming in Obaru, and I visited Obaru like 2 or 3 times when I was more the farming communities, and I had a lot of them as friends living in Onitsha. Anyway, first of all, I want to say something about your bank experience. I'm not sure. I don't know if you were using it as an example of what dynamics between men and women in Nigeria, because I had a similar experience, and I am 6'1", and then I was bigger then, and I came back from US with my FUBU shirt, Timberland boots, so I was big. I was big, and this little man, he came. I was standing, I queued up, and this little man, he came up. Older man, he came when it was my turn, and he went, and we had altercation. So and then they asked him to wait. So I'm not sure. So some people are just crazy, undisciplined. So I don't think my experience in Nigeria is that when it comes to things like that, queuing up, Nigerian men, they give difference to women. That's that's what I know. And okay, so I want to comment. You are anthropologist. I am not, and sometimes I wish I wish I were like an anthropologist / psychologist, because so I'm gonna say certain things, and then I want you to interpret, bring them together based on what you said about a relationship, getting married, and because what you are saying now, what you are doing, the way you decided to live your life, it's not like something that's unheard of. Even in Igbo culture, you see women that are that it wasn't common. They choose not to get married, stay in their father's house, have kids. So they choose lovers, do whatever. Nobody tells them what to do. And you've seen in life, some children, they're in their father's house, their parents' house, and oh, we don't have freedom, and they go out to live on their own. They find out that life is not the way. They want to come back home. And you made an analogy, like people you interviewed, they said if they had known, they wouldn't have been married. That's the experience. I've seen my parents, they had a good marriage. My mother was so proud of my dad. She was like, actually one of the things she said one day when I asked her, why did you get married to my dad, she said that the first time I saw him, I knew that there was a work God made for me in his life. So that's that's her. So and I growing up in Onitsha, there was this couple opposite our compound, and a lot of women, they love this couple, old man and woman. Every night they would come back from from their jobs, they would just stay outside, two of them only, they be talking like every time it's 2 of them. So many people love them. So that's the experience. So in life, it depends on what you are looking for to achieve. So for like somebody like Mother Teresa, she was all about, like, I'm sorry, I was talking to someone who was looking for she said she doesn't have a baby, she wants to have a baby. I said Mother Teresa, she didn't have a baby, but she lived a fulfilled life. So you don't have to have a baby, or you don't have to be married to live a fulfilled life. But I don't know. You said you're Bohemian. When you Bohemian, when you use that as an adjective, instead of as a noun. So because Bohemian, this is unconventional. That's basically the way they are. So what you are saying is not like unconventional. And then you look at life, like people who don't want to get involved in relationship because maybe they tie themselves together, but they get involved in some other thing. They tie themselves together to a work project, So how is it different being dedicated to something and not being dedicated to a human being? So I want you to bring them together. I want to understand. I know, like every one of us, you in your line of work, you've been discouraged, you felt bad, you've even cried, why this, just like people do in marriages. Some people do in marriage. So I want you to, bring them together. Like, fella, he lived a Bohemian lifestyle, but he was addicted to drugs. He was addicted to women to the extent that he had AIDS. I mean, or HIV or whatever AIDS. So I want you to, why, bring them together for me, like, you don't want to do this, but, you're addicted to something else or devoted to something else. Thank you.
Wow, that's a deep question. I love that. Yeah. I suspect you're a free thinker, actually. I suspect that there's some depth, there's so much substance in just what you presented. It's very fascinating, really. Thank you for mentioning the fact that there are women in the African continent historically that didn't get married. And this is a rationale I bring up oftentimes, and people dispute it and say, oh, but they're the minority. Then it's about numbers. They're the minority. Even though they're the minority, they exist. They're there. So I'm so happy you brought that up. Those women are there, and it is in a tradition you see in Obaru, absolutely. And I like the fact that you use the word lovers. They take up lovers because many of these are loving relationships, absolutely. But they're just different forms of it. You talked about people who are married, who have been together for life, which is a beautiful thing when it is authentic. When it is authentic. Again, people marry for different reasons. You talk to some women who they will tell you categorically, I'm no longer in love with this man. I'm just in it because my children. You hear this oftentimes. I want them to have, 2-parent household. You also hear people say, I'm no longer in love with my wife, my husband, but society expects me to be married. But when you can see people who are in love, longevity, that's fine. What I'm trying to advocate is that feelings change, and I do believe it's dangerous to prison your feelings. But for some people, it's not about feelings, it's about commitment. That's a different thing entirely. Because love goes like this. It's like water. It flows. And once you start to control it, that's where you start to have problems, So to me, the idea of signing that I'm going to feel this way about you, the way I felt, for the rest of my life, especially when young people make this commitment, you see a 20-year-old person signing for life. You just have to think about it, But oftentimes when you see people in loving relationships, what are the parameters of that relationship? Is it non-monogamous? You don't know. You don't know. They may have some liberties in that relationship. Yeah, if that makes sense. The last thing what was the last question about? Okay, addictions. I absolutely agree with you. Addictions. And I grew up in a very conservative household. Very church, very conservative. And I'm very thankful of that foundation that I have. I'm very thankful. And I do believe that when you're raising children, there should be safeguards. Because when you give children that foundation of, would I say conservatism? I would say, there's some rules. It gives them a standing so that when they go later in life, they make decisions not based on willy-nilly. I don't actually advocate for willy-nilly things that just don't make sense. I don't advocate for that. I feel that decisions should be based off of good, sound judgment. I don't advocate for addictions of any kind. I believe in disciplining and mastering your weaknesses. Very much so. Very much so. Some people may feel Bohemian means, oh, you don't want to marry, you want to be promiscuous, these kinds of things. I do believe in self-mastery, to be the highest version of yourself. And addictions weaken who you are. They weaken your divinity, your connection. I'm very spiritual. So therefore, I don't do addictions. I don't want to go into what I do, but I don't advocate for addictions. I do feel that people need to have sound judgment. This is why I very much value wisdom, the wisdom of elders. I value that very much. I don't take wisdom lightly.
All right. Thank you. We have Prince Apache who took issues when I played a video of you dancing. In fact, it was when I sent it out to my group. He wrote me quickly and said, "This is not. You didn't do it right. This is the music of the dance of my people." So
is it the Ebony? Okay.
Let's take a look.
Okay.
So Akwachi, Prince Akwachi can do this better than you did. So
oh my goodness, Dr. Damages! Oh my God!
Can you get up and do this for us? Let's see how it's done.
Okay, so basically, Chika, good morning. Oh, it's afternoon anyway. It's afternoon here in California, and Okija, good afternoon. I'm actually from Oko in Asaba. Pretty much what you were trying to do in that dance is called Eguamala. Okay, it's mostly, it's a traditional. Basically, it's kind of like a traditional dance for the women in terms of celebration and different kinds of things. That's, to me, let me give you a pass. It's a remix, so you got the you got a pass on that. Don't mind, Dr. Damage. I didn't say you didn't do it right. I only said it's my it's our dance. So I know basically everything about it, and that's what it is. It's not that I'm gonna dance more than but it is what it is.
For that to happen, that was why.
Well, I could have done it, but not today. Not today. I'm not in that mood. Not today. First and foremost, before Kija came on, when Miss Victoria was trying to pronounce your name, as some people answer Oduah, but what it is Oduah, whichever way, or whatever it is, it's a chitancy title, which I so much appreciate you correcting her, and also Okija, pronouncing it well. And I love the fact that you said you're somehow linked to Igala. Am I right? Okay. So, are you from Delta or are you Anambra? Which of them?
Okay, you want to in the beginning. Obaru actually has communities.
Obaru, yes, we have some in Anambra, right?
Yes,
and then when you cross to Delta, Oko, they are part and parcel of Ogbaru, because in Anambra you have places like Atani, you have Odekbe, you have Osomala, all those, Listen, I have relatives all over the place. That's why sometimes when people tell me you are not Igbo enough, I laugh at them, because we are actually part and parcel of Anambra State. It's just the river that just divided us and all that stuff. And I also learned that we also have a link to Igala too. I don't know how that came about. I've been trying to wrap my head around everything, but at the end of the day,
Akwachi, sorry, I know some this about the history. Igala people moved down to Okija, or Waru, or Rifite, or Zobo. You see some people from Igala that formed those communities, that came to form those communities, and they brought like also titleship was brought from Igala to to those areas.
Okay. Yeah. So my question is I don't know why people are kind of surprised. First and foremost, a disclaimer. Kene is not a Bohemian. Don't mind him. He's a MAGA. Okay? He's a MAGA because Bohemian has to do with liberal, having a liberal mind, or a liberal character, for you to be a Bohemian. So don't mind him. He's just playing around. He's a MAGA, a diehard MAGA and all that. So I know that certain women in my community are being, would I say, they're being allowed to sit with the elders, and those women are not married. They are not, I would say, they are not married. They can get them a wife. Okay, it has nothing to do with lesbianism. The wife is just somebody who cooks for them, somebody who cleans for them, and all that kind of a thing. But I think we have such things in my community, and we have no problem with it.
Go ahead, Prince. Sorry about that.
I was like, what is that? Yes. So pretty much we don't have a problem with that, because we see that it's pretty much fulfilling to know that I have a sister in Chika, who is who lives her life the way she wants her life to be. Yes, some people will say marriage, yeah, people are encouraged to marry, but at the same time, if you don't marry, hey, it's not a bad thing. It's still, live your life the best. But I'll shut up, mama, shut up. But anyways, let me just leave it that way.
All right, Prince.
Nice having you today. Okay.
Thank you so much. There's a question on the comment section. They want you to speak Igbo for them to hear you speak Igbo, Chika. So do that, and I have 2 more questions, and we round up.
So if I want to, let me ask her, Guinea Boafagi.
Afambu Chika. I was going to do the introduction. I mean,
okay.
Yeah. Afambu Chika.
You brought this down, Maga. My brother.
Prince, listen to her. Yeah.
Senegal.
Ibo Anambra State, Ibina, Senegal.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, what you think?
Can I also, sorry, Budaf, can I comment on Mr. Akwachi's comments?
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So you mentioned my community, Odepe, and I go quite often. I go quite often. I know the story about the Igala movement. My father did that research. I've done the research. I've spoken to our community leader, the Okaku. So we don't say Igwe, we say Okaku, which is an Igala word.
Yes,
also.
yes, you're
I've
right.
done extensive research on it. Some of our communities coming from Benin side.
Okay.
Another part of the community is Igala side. So my actual side is the Igala side. In
fact, the Igala side.
There are some. There are also some traditional festivals, ceremonies in Obaru that they say no Igbos are allowed.
Yep.
Only Igala. So we'll invite those.
Inyozu, like Inyozu, each Ulo, something like that. Yeah.
There are several. So we invite, the Igala community,
Yeah.
We have those linkages are still there very much. But as far as Eguamala, I mean, you're from California. So me growing up in Atlanta, there's so many Igbo communities, organizations. So my father was president of so many of them. I grew up in Atlanta Youth Association, Anambra State Association, all these things. So every weekend there was always an event. So I grew up watching Eguamala. So it's not a new something. It's always a beautiful thing. But one thing as a dancer, I do believe interpretation is allowed. I know some people like to keep things very strict, but dance art is about exploring. You have a base and then you interpret.
Right, thank you. I see KJ here, but before KJ, let me ask a question, more serious question. People wanted to know, I know that you interviewed the Boko Haram members, and for a while you were looking for the big guy. What's his name? He died and nobody even cared about him. But you were looking to interview the who can remind me? What's his name? The guy that was
Abubakar Shekau.
Shekau. Yeah. Okay. Will you interview any of these militia leaders? So what do they call them now? Bandits now that you have. Do you think you will try what you tried with the Boko Haram leaders?
I've interviewed them. This was 3 years ago in Kaduna, and that was really the height of this bandit thing. You know, that road from Abuja to Kaduna, Abuja all the way up to, after Kaduna even, that access, very dangerous. You know, it was very dangerous. And many of them are based in there's some shrubs in that Kaduna side. I interviewed them. There was a very intellectual Muslim cleric. He's very well known, who allowed me to go interview these guys. So I drove there and I was shocked when I got there, you know, and these are kidnappers. These were people who kidnap. That was the time where so many schools, students from schools in that part of Nigeria were being kidnapped. So I interviewed these bandits. What alarmed me was that there were AK-47s just everywhere, you know. It was myself, it was a cameraman and a fixer, like a translator. So they were armed, these people. Where we interviewed them was in they're big rocks. It's not mountains, it's just big rocks. So it was an enclave of rocks. And they were standing on the rocks, guarding to make sure no one could come in. But that was quite an interesting situation. And they were very proud to show me their weaponry. It was just so bizarre. So these people are just walking around with arms like this, you know. And after the interview, I was advised to get out quickly because these guys could always just change their mind and say, let's kidnap this lady. So the village leader said, please leave now. You know, once it became, I think, 5:30, you have to leave. You have to leave. These boys are very unpredictable.
Right. Thank you. Let's go to KJ. KJ, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Damages. Thank you, Chika Oduah. I appreciate your work and I enjoyed listening to you and also watching some of your moves. I've not read much of your books, but I will do that now that I've have an opportunity. You and I have come, or rather we've run almost the same process. I must say you are more brave than myself. When I got the opportunity of doing an interview with the Boko Haram guys, I declined because after considering the danger in it, you know, if you take the step, you may go, you may come back, you may not come back, and then you have to edit the story to suit what they want. I felt it was not necessary for me. Make I still train my family before. You understand what I'm saying? So you're very brave. I appreciate your work, the work you've done. I also read about your Biafra and the story that you told about, you know, those who survived it. I don't know. I have followed you so far, and so my question will be this: are you still doing more work on trying to tell the other side of the Biafran story that was not told? That's one. Two. Also, you are a dancer. In fact, most of what you have done, I've done. I used to own a theater club called the Ebony Theater Company.
Wow.
I started Ebony Theater Company, and we've done all that dance in Nigeria and across West Africa. And so I praise you for all the ability to weave all this into one and be able to sit around. I appreciate what you've done. And I want to say also, for those who are having problem accepting that women, not every woman will marry. Even for those of us who are Christians, the Bible says marriage is not for everyone. You know, so it's not everybody who is on earth, man or woman, that must marry. Some people are caught not to marry, and it's supposed to be accepted. You know, their choice should be, you know, honored and accepted. And then going back to the Igbo culture, I know there are many people in Igbo land who are also title holders, who are women, and they are known as men in the community because they are more brave, more stronger, and they are sometimes some of them lead their communities to war. So such people are accorded the same right as the men also.
So it is accepted practice in Igbo. Again, say your work stands out and speaks very loud. So what will you do? How do you? Because right now, if you notice something that's going on in Igbo land, the Igbos are beginning to tell their story, and certain individuals don't like it. So how do you think we can intensify telling our own story, especially what went down during the Biafran War? And are you doing more work on that area? Thank you so much.
Oh, wow. All of you all have been so welcoming. I just really appreciate the warmth I've received from the audience, Rudolph. Thank you so much. I don't know what's happening in the comments. I don't know, but the ones who have appeared in front of me have been very warm. So thank you so much. This is so heartwarming, honestly. I love interacting with people, and thank you for accepting different viewpoints. I mean, this is what you all do weekly. So I think you all are just fantastic, fantastic human beings, really taking the time to engage in thought. It's a beautiful thing. So well done to all of you. Mr. KG, I want to ask, what kind of dance were you doing?
The same kind of dance we are doing. We did the thief dance, the Idoma dance, the Igala dance, the Yoruba dance, the Igbo dance. In fact, I do a lot of Bata dance, the fisherman's dance, the the Sharo dance, the one they call the Kalangu dance. We did the Bachama dance. We did the flutes from Plateau State.
Yes.
Didn't do much of that. Yeah. So I was, it was big time with that, but had to let it go.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would love to connect afterwards.
Yes. It's Ebony Theater became one of the standing troupe together with the Bede Culture for Arts and Culture. Bede State Culture for Arts and Culture. Yes, we became almost on the same level before I left to go to the university. So
you said
it was a
Ebony,
big time. Ebony Theater Company, yes.
Okay, that's fantastic. I'm still trying to get Nwafikpo dance. That's what I'm working on now. But I'd love to connect afterwards because I like.
Okay, I can connect you to. In fact, right now, some of my theater members used to be in the national troupe, and some of them are right there, just where you are. So we can always connect, and I'll get you connected to them.
Thank you so much. In terms of the Biafra War memories, that is a lifelong project. As I said, the way the Jewish people have documented the Holocaust, they won't let the world forget about it. They won't even allow it. And I feel that's how it should be with the Biafran War, the Nigerian Civil War. This is human history, world history. So that's a lifelong project. It's an ongoing thing. I've been financing it. I did receive a grant. It was, grants supported and also my own financing. That's lifelong. It's nothing I do professionally. It's out of pure passion. Because also I see that the old people I talk to, it's a relief getting this off their chest. Many of them have not told their children these stories, but they open up to me and they just release. They cry. Like I said, they could talk for 4 or 5 hours. I just listen. Sometimes I'm holding their hands, just listening. So it's a project that enriches me deeply. It's a mutual benefit. They get to talk and I'm just listening. I'm connecting to their deepest emotions. And I love to do it. It enriches my own humanity. Okay. I hope that answers the question. Thank you very much, KG. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
All right. I speak the truth. I know you came before Madam Luke, but I want to give, it's been a long time we had a woman. So I'll come to you. Madam Luke, welcome to the show.
That's right. Dr. Damages, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. Greetings, my wonderful panelists, family, Dr. Damages family, my commentators, viewers at large. Good to be with you again for a topic that is very close to my heart. Unfortunately, I was sleeping, so I woke up and I'm like, I have to get into the end of it. So, greetings, my people. This is a very good topic. And before the topic started, I had already gone to do my research. And from the thumbnail, first of all, greetings, Madam Chika. So nice to meet you. So nice to hear from you. You have spoken eloquently and very well. So proud of your submissions. God bless you always. So I had done my research and I found that everything that Madam Chika has said aligns with my lifestyle. And it takes a very intelligent person to relate with a bohemian lifestyle. It's not for people who have no boundaries. It's not for illiterates. I'm sorry. I'm not. I'm not going to disrespect anybody, but you have to be very, very knowledgeable in that kind of lifestyle, so that you understand the consequences of your actions, and you also make wise decisions. So it does not have anything to do with living a lifestyle of debauchery. It has nothing to do with living an Epicurean or wasteful, impulsive lifestyle. That it is a conscious, calculated decision. As for the marriage part, I have been very anti-marriage since day one. And I've already promised my God, which is happily agnostic, that if I come to this world again, I will never, repeat my lips, try such a thing. Because like you said, you cannot promise somebody a lifetime of commitment that you cannot even promise yourself. So if I don't trust myself, what makes you think I'm going to trust you with my emotions, knowing that emotions constantly change? Life is like a flavor. You can't eat cereal for morning, for lunch, breakfast, and dinner. Life doesn't work that way. And who says if I love you today, I'm going to love you tomorrow? Heck no, it doesn't work that way. And I've told people, I'm a living testimony. Sometimes you find your soulmate after you get married. Yeah. You find your soulmate after you get married. So you think I'm going to die in that loveless marriage? I'm not doing that. I'm going to kick you to the curb. And I expect you to do the same. If you find what floats your boat, please, by all means, go there and be happy. Life is not a life sentence. Marriage is not a life sentence. It's not a jail that you have to sit there and say, okay, this is how it's going to be. It has no rules. So that's why I say, and I said, look at the role models of marriages we have around us. And I will always tell you, I have never seen a good one. Even the one my parents' marriage only lasted 8 years. That was it. Mm-hmm. And thanks to the fact that my mom is a very strong woman, and she realized early that was not for her. And she was like, you know what? No love lost. I'm sorry, children. Not I don't love you, but you see this thing here, I can't do it. And she was brave enough to make my father the single parent. She said, I'm not taking these 4 children with me. You are going to be the one to take care of them. I'll give you money. And that was how we lived the life, and it was a very beautiful one. My father loves to stay at home. He didn't want to leave the house after 7 o'clock. My mom is like, what am I going to do with such a man? Huh? Huh? What? Extremely boring. Not. I mean, she was like, sorry. And she got married at 19. And he was like, what, 29? He was like 11 years older than her or something like that. So my mom was like, this is not for me. I'm sorry. So I wish you the best. Have your kids. Even when they went to court to get the divorce, they were saying, do you want joint custody? She said, for what? He's the one that doesn't leave the house. What are we doing joint custody for? Please, give him the children. Let him be doing what he's doing there. I will be giving him the money. And she did a good job. She did such a fantastic job. She just came in 3 days ago and thought she can hear me. And I'm like, ma'am, you set a good example. So we never lacked. If my dad calls and said, oh, guess what? The school fees is so, she writes a check. Okay, today they're going on vacation to so place, she writes a check. So you see, who says you can't have the best of 2 worlds? And I always tell people, the fact that you're divorced doesn't mean you should neglect your children. You can take care of your children while you are happily separated.
Yes.
The problem between you and your wife or your partner has nothing to do with your children. And that is why being raised by a single dad, he never remarried, because after my mom broke his heart, that was the end of it. She was a damn beautiful woman, and he was like, no, I can't replace this woman, so I'm just going to stay by myself. My mom was the one that remarried. Of course, it didn't work out. I think her own only lasted 6 months. She was like, you know what, forget this, I'm done. 2 strikes, I'm out. So because society put pressure on her that she's nothing unless she's married, she jumped into the second one. And we all know the statistics for second marriages, 50% divorce rate. We know the statistics for third marriages, 75% divorce rate. So in other words, what they're trying to tell us is that you're jumping from frying pan to fire. I would never. And I told my daughters, I said, you know what, if you want to do, you first of all, I grew up in a Catholic home and my dad was Protestant. It was good for a while, just because I had to obey my parents. As soon as I was on my own, I ditched all those things. My mom took the kids, they were taken to the Catholic church. When they go there, all they're doing, they're on their phones. So what I'm trying to say, you cannot force religion on anybody.
Okay.
That call to Jesus moment or whatever it is, or is it on the road to Damascus? I want to call it. Just like people are going to Damascus. Some people are returning from Damascus. People like me return from Damascus to go and answer Saul. KJ is laughing. People are on their way. It takes a life transforming event to make you see Jesus the way you want to see it. Either is by death, or you lose somebody, or something will bring you to your maker. And then you know that you are one with that person. I'm not there yet because my life has been very good. So it means whatever life I'm living, the Bohemian lifestyle is working for me.
Oh.
It is working for me. I'm anti-marriage. I cannot stand that institution. In fact, when I see people, they look like they are miserable, they're in bondage. I don't understand it. I have aunties, I will looking at them and like, the best kind of marriage for me, which is what I have, you have to live in separate houses. I'm sorry. We will answer that with sis and mister, but you have to live in separate houses. I like that dating. I want to come see you. You want to come see me. And when I'm not there, whatever happens is not my business. And when you're not here, whatever happens in my house is not your business. So I have to do me. And if the children are watching, that's fine. You will make your own decision. By the time you try it, if it doesn't work for you, you will go to plan B. You know, you will find your own way. You can only tell children what to do because they're minors. Once they get older, there's nothing you can do. I have one that told me at 10 years old she was a lesbian. I said, knock yourself out. The next thing she changed to boys. I said, huh? Oh, you don't change? Oh, welcome, man. I didn't force, because all these influences out there are all out there. Let them go and try. When they go, they will learn from their mistake. And you see, and people say, oh, STDs, oh, this one. I work in the medical field, thank God. And that is not a stigma anymore. People come there, give birth, they have all kinds of things. We don't treat them any differently. They're living their lives. So as long as you did not invent the disease, I don't think there's anything you should be ashamed of. Somebody gave it to you. You weren't born with it. And even if you're born with it, it is not something that you can control. So are you going to say because you're going to die on the war front, you're not going to go to war? Heck no. Just get your tools and continue what you're doing. And when it's time to peg, you peg off gracefully and be gone. Life will continue. And that is what it's all about. But the most important situation that I'm going to take from this is make sure you do what makes you happy. Happiness only lies in your hands. It doesn't lie with you saying I do. In fact, the moment you say I do, you're going to be miserable for life. Because you will find out that person is going to change 10 times, a million times. And you are still living in your past glory. But this is not how we started. And who told you that is how you're going to end? So people are very unrealistic when it comes to this dating and relationship thing. I like an open marriage. I've always said it from day one. Please, if you see the one that fancies you, and when you come back, tell me how it went. I would like to hear how far. And I've heard stories. Hey, girl, this babe, in fact, I said, hey, you don't go come back now. So no problem. Welcome, sir. All right. How we proceeding? And the woman goes, I bet food there house. I want chop. Let's just move on. You know, all this holier than thou, I die, obey. This one, that's a bunch of bullshit. Just do what you want to do. And it takes a special person to understand you. And that's why I told people, I said, if you want remarriage, don't marry a Nigerian, especially a religious one and a traditional one. Those two, you are going to sign up your life of misery, because it's like all about control. The Bible said, our culture says, it's not in my books. I'm not doing that. So when I got rid of religion, I became happily agnostic and a free thinker. I became very, very satisfied with my life. It doesn't mean you're not going to have down times. It doesn't mean you're not going to be unhappy sometimes. But at least there are few things that control you in your life that happy. You have control over it. So that's what I say. As you can see, nobody with a Bible or Quran can cross my door. That's my number one rule in this house. Because we have nothing to talk about. If you talk that thing, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear about your Oba. I don't want to hear about your Obi. I don't want to hear about your Sultan. Those things, if you mention those things, I walk you out. I want to see what you have in your brain that nobody has indoctrinated you with. And half of the time, there ain't nothing there. You hear me? There ain't nothing there. Empty. Uburu, empty. Kanka warm, empty. I thought you ask them one question. They say, let me go and check what the Bible says. Let me go and check what tradition. Uburu, empty. Eating volleyball, eating more. So I'm sorry, I don't do that. And once some people are talking to me, it only takes me 5 minutes to size you up, and that's it. And somebody was telling something about how do you do this at your job place? Do they understand that this is a personal lifestyle and not a professional lifestyle? So when you go to your job, something that you eat with. You know, you put your Bohemian lifestyle at home. It's not something you don't go to work to go display your Bohemian lifestyle. It's a personal lifestyle, something you do in your house. Just like when you sign up for the job, they give you a professional list of jobs of your duties. Did you see your lifestyle there? They even tell you keep your personal stuff at home. The moment you mention religion, lifestyle, sexuality at the home, everybody's zips. They don't say one word. Because they don't want that part of their life to carry into their professional life, because you might lose your job for soliciting. So, my dear people, I don't want to talk much. I just want to let you know that this is a topic I wanted to, and I was so glad I was able to get on. Madam Chika, please, can you come in more often so I can come in? You see, there's so much testosterone there, and that's why I don't come in, because all they do is argue about politics and what Tinubu is going to do, and what Burkina Faso is going to do, and what Trump is going to do. I'm not interested. So please, can you come in more often so we can do this, please, sir, ma'am?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Welcome.
Sorry, Rudolph.
I'm not want to sit in the camera for 5 hours, so I'm going to go back out. If I need to say something, I'll come back.
Do you have another person controlling this thing?
I don't know who is doing that. I don't know.
Please stop doing that. Allow Rudolph to do it, please. Allow
I don't know who is doing it, but that's...
Any questions before I leave, my wonderful people? I know you are tired of hearing me talk on this Dr. Damages platform.
Thank you.
We're not tired of hearing you talk.
Thank you.
All right, see you soon. I'll be listening, okay? Let me go get ready for work.
All right. That's wonderful.
Interesting.
All right. So let's hear from I Speak the Truth.
Yeah. Hi, Rudolph, Chika, KJ. Oh, everybody's back. Bohemian, Kenny, and Mazi Prince. So, Chika, let me ask you first, because I have a question I want to ask you. After there's something I want to say, but first I want to know: would you describe yourself as a feminist?
Yes, I'm a feminist.
You're a feminist, okay? Because I know based on the conversation you had with AY, I think there was a question he wanted to ask you. Either he was skirting around it, trying to be polite, or he was maybe he just didn't put it succinctly. So first of all, I just want to say, especially with regards to your detailing of the war, appreciably, you are fact-based, at least according to yourself, and you rely more on evidence. And I think that is a breath of fresh air compared to the usual kind of guests that we usually get on here, who tend to be nationalistic and somewhat biased based on their ethnic background and how they view the events that happened back then. So what I just wanted to ask you now, with regards to your lifestyle, which has taken up a majority of the show, and that was why I asked you that question at first, and I asked AY the same question in the comments. Understandably, because we are all from a conservative background and a lifestyle that is free-spirited and very liberal, especially when it comes from a woman, might come off maybe as offensive to people. Most people wouldn't understand it, as you can tell from some of the questions that have been asked of you today. I just want to ask you, especially since you say you're admittedly a feminist. I think I have my answer already, but I want to ask you, what do you? Oh no, something else I want to ask before I ask the question. Do you date men? Yeah.
Is there something else you're trying to ask?
Yes. Do you date men?
I do date men. Yes.
Strictly men.
Yes, strictly men.
Okay, strictly men. So, in your relationships, what is your view on submission with regards to women and men, how they carry it out?
I think about submission, I think it depends on the partnership, whatever the two people come to an agreement about. So it's I don't believe it's a one definition for all. It's partner by partner. They need to discuss what works for them.
Okay. So you're not of the mindset that, well, this is also the African or religious mindset, that the man is in charge or the man leads and the woman follows.
I believe that people have their strengths. Some people are better at some things. People have strengths. Some people have giftings, talent, skills. And once you acknowledge that, you can now see how to go about your relationship.
All right, okay. That's what I believe that's what you're going to say.
All right. Thank you so much. I speak the truth. We
Right.
have exhausted. We are gone over 3 hours, which is for those who want to continue the conversation without Chika and myself. KJ, we run another stream that we discuss what we discuss here. That is your own feedback, for those who want to take it up from there. But before we go, AY, I will let you say one more thing before Chika gives us his. Thank you.
Okay, quick question. Chika, quick 2 questions, very fast question. So the first one is on the issue of Biafra, right? I think all along it's just hearing the viewpoint from most people from the Biafra side of things. I don't tend to see people that were like at Biafra, their viewpoint. Were you able to get people that are really at Biafra to give you their viewpoint? And the other thing is, do you think part of the reason why the Biafra does speak about is guilt? Do you think so? That's one. The second thing is, you say you interview the bandit in Kaduna. What do they want? What do they want? What were you able to pick out? Like, in all honesty, why are they doing what they are doing? What do they want? Thank you.
If you go to the BiafranWarMemories.com, are you in Nigeria, first of all? Are you inside Nigeria?
No, I'm in the States.
Okay,
Yeah,
because
like
I said, the website has been banned by the government in Nigeria. So you can only access it outside or with VPN in Nigeria. So just to let you know. If you go to the website, which is really an archive of people I interview, there are people from different sides. So it's not just people from Biafra. I spoke to some Nigerian military personnel. They have a different viewpoint, obviously. I spoke to some civilians from northern Nigeria. I went as far as Adamawa, Maiduguri. There's a plethora of voices, perspectives there. So if you go there, you'll definitely see. About these bands.
What's the website though?
It's BiafranWarMemories.com.
Okay, thank you. I will look it up.
Biafran War Memories, yes. In regards to the bandits, it's financial gain. In the beginning, it started with some religious ideology, but now it's more so financial gain with some religion behind it. That's what I was able to gather. But this is all parts of the book that I'm writing, so more of the revelations will come out. But that was the basis of it. They're being paid to do this by influencers in Nigeria, political influencers, which is very, very unfortunate.
All right. Chika, final words. I know you formed a feminist group in Enugu. How is that going?
Enugu Feminist Circle, yes. I just wanted to hang out with some other women who are contemplating how to navigate tradition and modernity. Because that's the fact. When people talk about tradition, even you who's talking, you're not living the way your great grandfathers lived. You're really not. So people say tradition. Are you living tradition 100%? Because even those great, they also adapted to whatever was happening. And sometimes those people who we hail and reverence as ancestors, sometimes they want us to move forward, to do things differently. It's not to stay stagnant. So anyway, it's about how do you navigate tradition and modernity? And this is an age-old question that people around the world ask. We all do this thing. Even our ancestors were also doing this. Because in all of our societies, you always have people who are innovators. Even back then, you had people who innovated things in society. So this Enugu Feminist Circle, it's a once a week hangout. We just come to socialize. That's all. There's no indoctrination of anything. It's just to come, go to restaurants, eat suya, and talk about our lives. That's it. That's all we do.
All right. Thank you so much, Chika, for joining us, and hope you will come back. You see, we don't buy people here. This is a very I've been inviting Chika for how many years have we done this? And finally she agreed to do it today. There was a week we did a flyer. It was about to go out. No, I can't do it.
Oh yeah, I think I remember that.
All right.
Thank you, Chika. Yeah, come again. We are nice people.
I think I'll definitely come more often. You guys are very cool. You guys are cool people, really.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And then that's where we are going to end it for today. We want to thank all those that joined us, those that supported us. Riako, Top 8, thank you so much. KJ, thank you. I Speak the Truth, thank you. AY, Kene, Prince Akwachi, and of course, our guest, Chika Oduah. Thank you so much. So when we come back, the other stream, I posted a link. You can go there and then have a wider conversation on what we discussed here today. I appreciate everybody. Thank you, and I will see you next week.